You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Infinite diversity.
Live long and prosper, and welcome to Infinite Diversity, a Star Trek Universe podcast, back here on the BQN Podcast Collective. I'm your host for today, Chrissie, and joining me is my co-host, Thad. Thad, it's been a little bit. How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. Feeling a little weird. I think when I injected tardigrade DNA into myself, it did some strange things. But other than that, I'm fine.
It's been known to do that. It's, If you start seeing yourself in the mirror after you've walked away, then call me. Then we got something to worry about. Also joining us today is Katie Nickolau, fandom meteorologist extraordinaire. Katie, how are you doing today? Thank you for joining us.
I'm doing great. Oh, thanks for having me. It's always fun.
Before we jump into our topic for the day, we'd like to take a moment to thank our Patreon patrons who make this show possible, particularly our associate producer, Carl Wonders. Listeners, you can hear your name listed as one of our associate producers for a monthly subscription of just $10 at patreon.com/BQN. And with a monthly Patreon subscription of just $5, you can join our Meetings of the Hive Mind. Watch your Patreon messages for details. So there's been news since we were last on, because it's been a month and a half or so. But so we're not going to recap all of that. But I do want to ask, do you think this movie that they announced a few days ago is actually going to happen?
No.
I think a movie will happen someday, but I think specifically this new Star Trek IV, which is apparently a prequel set decades before 2009, which means it is not really a Kelvin timeline movie anyway. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
Yeah, based on the fandom's reaction, if anyone at Paramount is watching, they're probably like, oh, okay, nope.
Though, I have to... No, they've made that evidence.
Yeah.
I do have to say, if they were paying attention, then we will get an Admiral or President Archer Romulan War movie. That's been the big,
Bring back Scott Bakula.
If it's going to be decades ahead of the Kelvin timeline, then let's just do that. Okay, so one of the other pieces of news that we did get was that the people at, which convention is it? Late March is going to get to see the first episode of the new season of Discovery.
That's South by Southwest.
I was going to say that, and I didn't believe myself, because South by Southwest used to be a comedy convention. So I said it can't possibly be
It's been a long time since that was true, but yes.
Yeah, I know it has. I'm going back to the early aughts. Anyway, so we've got a new season of Discovery happening early April, likely now.
I would imagine, because that's the second weekend in March that they're showing it at South by Southwest. Yeah. So, if it's more than a month ahead, that would seem unlikely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have to control the spoilers.
Now, that said, I want to shake my fist at Paramount here, because...
Yeah, do it.
Back in the old days, a studio showing an early preview of a show at a convention was pretty common. And it's still fairly common today. But there is no reason, when a company owns their own distribution platform, for it to be a month between when you're showing at a con and when you're giving it to the general public.
Mm-hmm. 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 Especially when it's something that there will be spoilers, and it's not like just, hey, here's a random episode of this not serialized television show that we're going to show in a month.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yeah, like when they showed Those Old Scientists at San Diego Comic-Con, right. It released on Paramount Plus later that day.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
Well,
but when has Paramount been good at handling their own promotion? So
we should stop shitting on Paramount so much. They're going to be like, well, fine, if that's how you feel. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of feel like that's going to end up getting moved up, because if they are showing it, then there's going to be stuff that gets out. I mean, it's not like what happened with Picard, but...
No, I mean, it's going to be because it's the opening episode, so I doubt there will be too many huge spoilers for that. And even if there are, it's not going to spoil the, big, whatever the big reveal at the end is. And the fact that the official announcement that it was going to be at South by Southwest also said it would be ahead of the April release tells me that it's not going to get pushed up. But it does mean it's almost certainly going to be early April rather than late April.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Let's see. The 1st of April is a Monday. Mm-hmm. So if they go with dropping on Thursdays, the 4th. Actually, wait, the 5th is First Contact Day, right? That's the 5th, not the 4th.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably what they'll probably end up
It'd
doing.
be smart if they lined it up that way.
That would be cool. Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah. So it probably won't happen.
Right.
All right, well. Imaginary movie and wondering about Paramount's marketing capacity.
Also, apparently, Patrick Stewart's working on a Picard movie script.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that... interesting.
God. We've come a long way from the man who refused to unpack his suitcases because he didn't think that he was going to go anywhere with this, and also didn't want to be only known as Captain Picard.
So, I am okay with more Picard. I'm okay with that. I know there's some people that are mad at the entire concept on the internet because people will get mad about everything on the internet. But I'm okay if we get more Picard in something. I don't want Patrick Stewart to write the movie. I do not want that.
No. That was bad with
because
season 1 and
everything that I dislike about the first 2 seasons of Picard, and I won't that it's probably not everything. It's probably like 90%. Come down to the fact that it was Patrick Stewart. It was the whole story was Patrick Stewart's idea, and he wanted it this way. And he's a great actor. I don't need him writing a movie.
At least not a Star Trek movie. Write a movie about Shakespeare or something.
Yeah.
Something that we don't have the background.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, if that's just a hint that's being thrown out there for a movie that moves into Star Trek Legacy, that could work.
That's
Again,
true.
Though, not with Patrick Stewart writing it.
Or it is
I
Legacy.
also still don't like the name Star Trek Legacy. I want it to have a different name, but yes.
Me too. Because that sounds like something that's old and past and already done. Yeah.
And
right.
I will also share one other news thing that happened while we were gone that is unfortunately near to my heart. Playmates has exited the action figure market again.
They weren't doing that right either. They did it right in the 90s. Mm-hmm. We had action figures for characters that showed up for 5 minutes.
So
it's glorious.
We say that, and that's true, they did, but that's not that. Those weren't in Wave 1. Those were in like Wave 4. They started. There were a lot of waves in the 90s. Yeah, but Star Trek was at its peak for merchandising in the 90s. Like the market was there. The market is not the same today.
No.
Shows in general, like toys for franchises, just there aren't. It's a smaller market in general for all over the place. Like, I mean, go to your local Target or Walmart and check out the action figure aisle. It's not even going to be a whole aisle anymore. When I was a kid, there would have been like 2 aisles of action figures. It's just not, the market's just not there. It's not, unfortunately, we're never going to get the 90s Playmates figures again, and that is very sad because I love them so much. Yeah.
They're still there. If you got them
I still have them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know. That's just, I understand why. I also don't understand why they didn't emphasize Prodigy, because if there was going to be a market for toys, it's surely the children's show for actual toys as opposed to we grown-ups who buy toys that are collectibles.
I think part of that was because Paramount didn't emphasize Prodigy, and Prodigy never 100%. Became like I don't think Yes, Playmates was very late with releasing their Prodigy things that they had announced, and then they got delayed, and then they finally just were basically on Amazon. But I think part of that was they recognized that there wasn't much market for it because kids had no idea what Prodigy is because no one was watching Paramount Plus. That said, Prodigy is on Netflix now.
Yes.
And the figures, at least for as much as figures we get from Netflix, really all we know is it made the top 10 on Netflix when it came out. So hopefully it keeps that momentum, and then into season 2 it gets really good and continues to build momentum, and we'll get a season 3. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Woo. Agreed. And speaking of getting more seasons, let's talk about Discovery's first season, which was the first season of Trek that we had in 12 years?
Yes.
Yeah. 2005 was when Enterprise was over. So we'll talk a little episode by episode here, but I just want to get a quick vibe for how you guys felt about this when you found out when it started. Katie?
Well, when I first started, I was in college, and I'd never seen Star Trek like air new episodes on TV in my life because I didn't get into it until like the 2010s. So this one I was really excited about, and I just remember watching it on our TV in college in my dorm room and just being like, "Huh."
That's a good. Huh.
Okay.
All right.
We'll get into it more in the episodes, of course, but just okay.
It took a minute.
I
wasn't quite what you were expecting.
It actually took quite a few minutes. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Reasonable. Thad?
I mean, when they announced new Star Trek, I was obviously thrilled that we were getting Star Trek again because I had been watching since the early 90s, and that 12-year period where we had no new Star Trek was hard. So I was so excited. I went to Star Trek Las Vegas that year when they had the Discovery preview. That was my first big Star Trek convention. It was amazing.
Good timing.
Yeah, and I was this was a funny story. Discovery was for season 1, it was released on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. And at the time I was working Sundays, and I called out with the I'm going to watch Star Trek flu that day.
We won't tell.
And yeah, it was so cool. And then of course it was delayed because the first episode was aired simultaneously on TV and on CBS All Access, as Paramount Plus was called in those days. And there was a football game. I think it was a football game was on before it, and it was delayed. It started like 15-20 minutes later than it was supposed to. And they also pushed back the stream on the website on CBS All Access at the same, which made no sense, but yeah.
Oh, I didn't remember that part.
Yeah.
I think I was running late as it was, so I just pulled it up on the streaming, and I didn't even look at what was going on the TV.
It actually, like, for me, like, I had been refreshing the streaming. It actually, like, didn't show up for me on CBS All Access until like a few minutes into the live broadcast.
That's okay. That makes sense. I mean,
yeah,
that was flip the switch over here, and then somebody's got to run over the other side.
That was
the building,
the
right?
thing. For the first 2 seasons, it dropped in prime time, and and it was always the game of let's refresh until it shows up, and I'm sure that's why it no longer drops in prime time because we're hammering their servers hard.
Yes, by the end of that first season, I remember, because we all have our chats with our fellow watchers, and I remember getting chats of like, oh, it dropped at 7, and oh no, it dropped at 6:45, and they just kept we'll drop it when somebody remembers before 8 o'clock so that everybody's not going nuts. But I think that had the same effect. It was just earlier in the day.
Yeah, and that's why actually even now it officially, the new episodes of the new shows officially drop at midnight Pacific time, but they actually drop at like 11, between 11 and 11:15 Pacific time.
Yeah. Which is good for me being on Eastern time if I wanted to stay up, which I don't. But
yeah, because you know it only drops at 2:15 instead of 3. So, but I will say, back in the day before I was privileged to be on this podcast, and we often gained early access to episodes, I would often stay up until 2:15 to watch Star Trek, because there's new Star Trek coming out. It's not like I'm going to be able to fall asleep. It's new Star Trek coming.
I can't remember the last time I saw that side of 2:15, so... I've seen 2:15, but it was usually to wake up in the middle of the night.
Sure.
Right, so we start with the Vulcan hello. Okay.
Oh, we didn't hear how you felt when Discovery first launched.
That's true. Okay, so I was super excited, and let me see. I think we planned dinner early so that we could have lots of popcorn and candy watching it, I think. Yes. And nice. No, you know what? I must have watched Vulcan Hello on TV, because I missed the very beginning with T'Kuvma. When I turned it on, it was right as it was fading into Giorgio and Burnham on that planet, and I thought that was the beginning, and I didn't realize until I watched it again that I had missed that first part. Oh. Yeah.
Interesting.
Which was probably because of the football game.
Right, yeah.
Because I was like, it's delayed. Yeah, that's right. I had forgotten about that.
So you watched it on TV with commercials.
Yeah. Probably the last thing I watched on TV with commercials. Voluntarily.
And then I assume you switched over to Battle of Binary Stars on.
Yeah.
As soon as Vulcan Hello ended.
Yeah. Oh, but it was just so exciting, and I remember, I think I had tears in my eyes at the end of it. You know, just by virtue of the fact that it existed, and yeah. So it was very exciting, and it was nice to see people of color and women at the head of it. It was not nice to hear all the people complaining about it. It was, not to get political, but it was a nice little bright light, considering everything else that happened in January of 2017, by which I just mean the inauguration of that president. But, it was a nice little distraction for a few minutes. So there is hope in the world. But yeah, so that first episode is the Vulcan Hello, which is a wonderful way of putting shoot first, ask questions later. They really set a TOS tone, I thought.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, Giorgio's joking around, there's laughing on the bridge. It's mostly humans, which is, again, a really TOS tone. And first watching it, I thought that the story of the Klingons having forgotten Kahless as being akin to the Enterprise storyline about the Vulcans forgetting Surak didn't quite turn out in the way that I expected at the time. But I was, you try to make those connections. Listeners know that I try to make connections, so that shouldn't be surprising. Yeah. So, right, so that is the episode that starts it with, ending with Michael's mutiny. We find out a little bit about her. We have the incident at the Learning Center that we get a smidge about, and then things go forward. And then it jumps right into Battle at the Binary Stars, which I have been calling Battle of the Binary Stars for the past 6 years, apparently 7 years.
That's because
that's what they call it on the show.
That's what they call it on the show.
Yeah.
They refer to it as the Battle of the Binaries. So yeah, it's an easy mistake to make.
And then I started thinking,
it's interchangeable.
Well, I mean, it is, and like historically speaking, when you talk about battles like that, you generally say the Battle of. But there are some big ones that are the battle at. So it was just interesting.
What's a real life battle at? Because I'm not immediately thinking of it.
The one that I came up with that I knew for sure was the Battle at the Wilderness. In the Civil War.
Yeah. Oh, well, see, I've heard it as the Battle of the Wilderness.
Well, okay, then maybe not.
As long as you know what battle it is, it doesn't
and that's
matter.
the thing. It's grammatically speaking, battle at makes a lot more sense because
It does.
Battle of the Binary Stars has Amelia Bedelia looking at two stars trying to kill each other, right?
Yeah, going. Yeah.
Oh,
I was not expecting an Amelia Bedelia reference. That's amazing.
That just randomly popped in my head just then, so it was, but Amelia Bedelia is awesome.
It's such a good name too. For a battle. Like, it's got that alliteration, sort of Battle of Binary, like, so cool.
And the historian in me saw the Klingons trying to unite as an allegory to Western Europe in the First Crusade. I don't know that there's really nothing that pulls through on that, but I remember thinking about that. When I sat down to do this with the rewatch, I had not rewatched the whole first season of Discovery in a long time. And I tried to put myself in that position of like, okay, watch this as if you don't know what's going to happen. And in some cases, I'd forgotten stuff that happened, so that was good. But yeah, so...
Did you forget that Lorca was from the Mirror Universe?
No, I did not forget that, but we'll get to it. I did forget that they plunked Mira Georgiou in the center chair at the end. Pretending to be actual Georgiou. Because we have so much with her afterward that it's like a little blip,
Gotcha, yeah.
But yeah, so that was our opening. That's the beginning of the Klingon War and all of that. How'd you guys feel about these episodes?
Literally in my notes, the first thing I put was those freaking Klingons, ... Because I remember when it came out, everyone was just like, oh, the Klingons and this, and they are do this and this and this. Just a lot of internet yelling. And it did make me, on my first rewatch, because this is the first time I'd gone back and rewatched it since it premiered.
Ooh, okay.
Discovery wasn't necessarily my biggest cup of tea, and also I was in college and having my first job and didn't have a lot of time for that. Voyager's my go-to because I don't have to pay attention to it. I have them memorized. But no, I was as I'm watching it, I'm like, how differently would the reception have been if they had gone with the TNG Klingon design? Or like a slight modification instead of the really heavy makeup, the really
if they look like they're doing
manipulation of the face.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what if they had done that? And I'm thinking, this show might have jumped off of a trampoline instead of off of a platform. If they had done that, maybe it would have had a little bit of a better reception. Less people would have jumped off of the ship so fast. So it was kind of bittersweet to go back and rewatch it, just be like, it's got good stuff. It's just, because then it was a lot of native Klingon, and it was very Klingon heavy. Yeah. And after a while, like, I'm watching, I'm just like, I don't want to read. I'm watching television. Like,
there was
the millennial that I am.
Too much Klingon.
There was.
So I don't.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm not alone in that.
The Klingon makeup, I don't. But honestly, if they had just had hair,
then because then it would have been like Christopher Plummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And a little bit different.
I mean, if people had showed me a TNG, a TOS, and a Discovery Klingon, and said 2 of the 3 are Klingons, like, the Discovery ones look so different compared to what we're used to. It's so.
Well, I don't know if I would have, if someone showed me TOS, TNG, and Discovery, I'd say, these are
TOS.
3 entirely different people.
Yeah.
Just because knowing that I know TOS, like, like when I look at those and they're like, okay, this is a Klingon, I'd be like, But then you get into the whole Enterprise and how they explain the Klingons and stuff, and it's like, I can see what they're trying, but I don't know. It was distracting. It kind of took away from the story
honestly,
for me.
the Klingons in Discovery in Season 2, when they still had the exact same makeup, but they just added hair, looked so much better.
Mm-hmm.
And
the
like,
whole,
it would
like,
be fine if
exactly.
Voq was still bald. It would be fine if L'Rell was still bald. It would be fine if Chakotay was still bald. But why are they all bald?
Because they shave their heads when they're at war.
But they weren't at war at the beginning of the movie.
I know.
Show. I remember that justification
Yes.
being put out there, but it makes no sense because they're not at war until halfway through the episode.
And they're
We should have seen a
always at
scene with
war.
them all shaving their hair off.
I was gonna say, yeah, there's the Dominion War. Worf kept his hair.
Well, they got rid of that tradition because it got to be. It took a lot of time to shave a head that bumpy without hurting
It
yourself.
took too much
And
time.
you can't do that every day when you're at war. I mean, just no.
My other problem with the Klingon makeup, I'm still okay with how it looks, but it really messes up how they talk.
Yeah.
Yes, they're like, don't go, ma. Oh, oh. And it's like, can you enunciate a little bit more, please? Just a little
And I
bit.
appreciate they did put a lot of effort into making sure the Klingon language was correct.
Yes. As well they should.
And the actors getting
Uh-huh.
it right.
But
Like, holy how do you memorize
they
that
really
line?
should have done it the way they did it in the TOS movies in TNG, where we get a couple lines of Klingon, and then they switch over to English for the sake of the viewer. And it was
Yes.
just too much. And I honestly, there were times where I found myself zoning out and not even paying attention during the long Klingon
Yep.
conversations, because it's just like,
Yeah.
no, this is too much. I
figured if it was important, I'd find a Cliff Notes online.
They'll repeat it in English after.
Right, or it's
Yeah.
like
Explain
this
it.
is in my rewatch. The first time I watched it, I'm pretty sure I watched every subtitle, even though I was annoyed
Yes.
about it. But this time it was like I'm like, I have a basic idea of what they're talking about. I'm gonna just look at my phone for a little bit. It's fine. Yeah.
It would be interesting to see if someone came back and like did the Klingon scenes and then actually made an edit where it's the first few lines are Klingon and then they translate it to English and they redub it. That'd be an interesting thing to see if it's easier to ingest.
They should do that.
That'll generate a whole subs not dubs conversation.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Which
Oh,
I
yeah,
admit,
yeah,
and this
can
might
do
be
that.
why I wish that they didn't do quite so much Klingon subtitles. I am very much in the I prefer dubbed anime camp. So
100%. 100%.
Depends on what you're watching. Did you guys?
My Hero Academia.
Yeah. No, I haven't seen that. Did I have consumed very little anime. It has not been.
You're in academia.
I've been told. I know. I have to get. For All Mankind is there ahead of that, and then there's a few other ones.
You absolutely need
And
to
I
watch
just
For All
started that.
Mankind.
I'm like 3 episodes into that, and yeah.
Are you enjoying it so far?
Yes. Except I got confused because there's another Apple show that Jared Harris was on, and I thought Jared Harris was on this, and I thought, here's how, like, I was completely confused because I thought he played a Russian on this, like he did in Chernobyl, and I was like, oh, that's going to be really funny. He played a Russian in Chernobyl, and he plays a Russian on this, and he's not even on the show. So,
No.
yeah,
I mean,
totally confused.
that's probably the only way that they could have made For All Mankind better would be if Jared Harris was in it, because I love him in everything he does.
Yes, absolutely. But anyway, so the subtitle thing. Thad, I know you saw Godzilla Minus Zero. I think.
No, I haven't
No.
actually.
Oh, you know what? I was confusing that with something else.
I want to see it, but I have not seen it yet.
Have you seen it, Katie? Okay, even if you're not a
not.
Godzilla fan, go see Godzilla. Well, rent it when it's out now.
Okay.
That is subtitled.
Yeah,
It's
a Japanese movie, sure.
beautiful. That's how it should be.
Oh, cool.
Just how it works, and I have no problem with dubbing, but for some things it's just I like that better. And maybe that's just me.
So, confession, and if friend of the show Donnie Winter is listening, he's going to judge me hard for this. I have only ever seen the new MonsterVerse Godzilla movies. I have not seen any of the Japanese Godzilla movies.
Oh, okay. You mean the
I've never seen Godzilla,
the American
so
the one starting with the 2016 Godzilla?
Yeah, those are the
Okay.
only ones I've seen.
You're not alone in that. Yeah, and Katie, I mean, yeah, watch those. Start
But
with
I
those.
have heard amazing things about Godzilla Minus Zero, so I do want to see it.
Oh, it has nothing. Godzilla exists in that as part of the story in the way that the zombies are the catalyst in The Walking Dead, and it's
Sure.
not about the zombies, and it's just so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we digress. Subtitles versus versus not. And Godzilla never speaks Klingon, so there we're back.
I want that crossover.
Me too. Because you know who Godzilla is then? He's a Gorn. That's it.
Yeah.
He's just a giant Gorn.
Yes. Oh, that's definitely the mother Gorn.
All right. So before we go on to the next one, having not talked about these that much, but
there is something else I want to say about these episodes as well.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I in preparing for this podcast, I watched Jessie Gender did a video review of Vulcan Hello and Battle of Binary Stars just recently. She's going to be going through and watching all of the Discovery and doing
cool.
little reviews. And she brought up something that I had never considered before. Apparently, there's a bit of a rumor. So one thing we know about Discovery during its Discovery Season 1's production was hectic, to say the least.
Yes.
A lot of things happened. There
Yeah.
were a lot of some people left. Some people there were a lot of changes during the process, and we ended up with this product. But there's we know that at one point it was going to be 13 episodes long, and then they changed it to 15. And there is a rumor that originally the scenes from Vulcan Hello and Battle of Binary were going to be flashback scenes throughout the season, and we were going to start with Contexts for Kings, and Burnham on the prison transport would have been the opening scene in the season. And the more I think about it, the more I kind of wish they had done that.
Yeah.
Because as much as I enjoy the story that we get in these 2 episodes, they are very removed from the rest of the season. A bunch of the main cast are not even in these episodes, and they tell basically a separate story. They're like a prequel.
Yeah.
And
They are, yeah.
And then having that in my mind, and then going on and watching the episodes, when I got to Contexts for Kings, I'm like, this is a great way to introduce the character. The prison thing with because you got Burnham just sitting there quiet, and they're like, oh, don't you know who that is? That's the Starfleet mutineer. And it's like, if you didn't know the backstory, that makes this scene cooler.
Yeah.
I kind of wish they had done it this way, that we had gotten the flashbacks throughout the season.
Yeah. I feel like that, and also I kind of wish the Vulcan Hello and Battle of the Binary Stars, or Battle at the Binary Stars, were combined
properly.
Like
yes.
they were because there was so much filler, and some of the scenes were so drawn out. It's like, chop it, slice it. You can do a director's cut if you want, but no, make that into one episode, because it is all just it's a prequel to what happens for the rest of the season.
I think of them as one episode basically, because like I have never watched one without the other.
Yeah,
and,
I don't know
like
how
they
you
aired
do
on the same night, so like I think of it as like the 2-hour Discovery premiere. But yes, I agree.
Well, see, what's funny is when you guys reached out and were like, hey, you want to do season 1 of Discovery? I was like, yeah, sure. So I watched the first 2 episodes, and then I was going up north for a ski trip. And that's about a 2-hour drive. And so I was like, you know what I'm going to do? Because I love listening to shows. Because I have the scenes memorized. I love listening to pick up on things that I wouldn't have because I'm so visually attached. And so I was listening to them, and I had to stop because I was like, I'm driving. I will fall asleep like, in some of the parts. Like, I felt so bad. But no, I got through it. And I got up north. But I was just like, without the visuals, it does lack that intensity.
And especially when you're listening to just Klingon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm just like, someone gurgling? Like, what?
So yeah, I had heard that those were supposed to be edited in as flashbacks as well. I didn't know it was a rumor. I guess I heard it and just thought it was fact.
It may be more than a rumor, but I don't know if we have official confirmation on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think I am not a writer, so what I think may have worked better is not necessarily true. But having watched the whole season in a binge like I did this week, I feel like that could have been a cool way to do it.
Yeah, no, going back and knowing that was a possibility, part of me is kind of like, yeah, do that, because I hate flashbacks. I feel like it's disjointed. It causes confusion until you do a second rewatch. But with this one, it's like, yeah, if that would have meant that we had less context, that would have been king. So
yeah,
Beautiful.
do it like Picard has its own problems, but do it like Picard. We got season 1 of Picard. We got flashbacks throughout the season explaining what had happened, and I think that part actually worked.
Yeah. Well, and if they didn't string out the flashbacks through the other 13 episodes, if it had been more flashbacks for this Context is King, and then going forward maybe for another one, like, that works. If you're doing the whole season until you get the whole story, people would have been kicked.
I think maybe do some flashbacks later, but I think certainly get the gist of the story in Context is for Kings.
Yes,
the one thing, because I agree with you guys about the flashbacks, except for Giorgio. I think the way this is set up, you actually get to have a sense of who she is and what type of person Michael is missing, and then is mentally projecting on Mirror Giorgio. I don't know that you would have gotten that as well through the flashbacks. So that's the one. Yeah, it would have been a delicate thing. I disagree, but that might have been better, because then we wouldn't have gone into it expecting Giorgio to be Giorgio.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah. Right. So, a Star Trek show that's about a war, ostensibly, and we start out.
We've had that before.
Well, okay, but not started
halfway through.
As.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, yes, DS9 was a great
but
deal
the
about a
best
war,
seasons of DS9 are the ones that deal with the war.
Agreed. As much as I love the Bajoran politics, and I do love the Bajoran politics, it's better after that. But
and when I say best seasons of DS9, I'm not saying the other seasons suck. I'm saying
totally. Yeah.
It's just elevated above base.
But the premise of this one, we're starting out with a war, which is not very Roddenberry-esque, but it works.
It's a war we already knew happened.
Yeah.
They're not inventing a new war. We this war has been referenced in the past. We knew about it from TOS. So, no, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like it's also not entirely like cut and dry war, no war, Roddenberry, not Roddenberry, because with Discovery, it's a science ship. And so I figured like they towed right along the line of too much fighting for Star Trek, because they didn't really do like cutting throats and stabbing people. Like, they ran battle simulations like little scientist nerds that they are. So I felt like it was an acceptable extension into war within the Star Trek mindset.
They saved the cutting throats and stabbing people for Strange New Worlds.
Yes.
Yeah. Ooh, boy.
And don't get me wrong, you know, the Roddenberry vision is not the end all be all. I'm not saying that. It's just
hashtag Gene's vision.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
But exactly, a lot of people like they came out and they were like, "Oh, war and this and this." It's like, well, war's spread out term.
War is the backdrop of this season. War is not the story of this season.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think Michael was right?
No. And Michael agrees that she wasn't right at the end.
Okay, this is gonna be a fun one. No, because I mean, I feel like Giorgio should have listened more to her, because Giorgio's going with her own human experience with Klingons. They already said, like, there's not a lot of experience with Klingons. And so knowing that the Vulcans have experienced them and managed to have peace, it's like, okay, there's already a groundwork laid out for you, and you have advice from a high-ranking Vulcan. I just wish, like, Burnham shooting and, like, stunning her, like, yeah, she was probably messed up for doing that, but she was right in the method of, we need to fire
the ends
first.
do not justify the means. So, I understand the logic behind it. One, the mutiny part was not right.
No, that was across the board not right.
Takuvma was looking for a fight regardless.
Yes.
If they had fired first, he would have then taken that as his excuse to to fight.
Yeah.
It would have still happened. The war would still happen whether they had fired or not.
Yes.
Which is also, and also remember that they didn't fire, which is why the other thing you see among people, the annoying people on the internet, is people will talk about how Michael started this war, and she most certainly did not.
Well, but they present it as she started the war.
She absolutely
They present in universe that people think
Yes.
that.
Yes.
But if you actually watch the show and understand what happened, she didn't.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
No.
And the thing is, I'm gonna go down the middle here.
Okay.
Because the mutiny wasn't right. But
Yeah.
I think that if if they had shot first, that would have set the tone. But Takuvma was out to start a war. And somebody says at the beginning of the episode, it's almost a comment in passing about how this could be a trap to bring us in. I think it's Saru. I don't remember. It might be Michael who says something
it's
like...
Saru.
It's okay. Yeah. Who says Starfleet's... the way they said it was like technical hygiene or something like that. Technology hygiene.
Oh, no, that was Burnham. That was Burnham that said that, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it was just, they knew that if they did something to this, this communications relay, that somebody's going to come looking for it. And so it wouldn't have mattered in the end, but it might have changed the tone. And maybe not for the better, so... All right.
Yeah, that is one thing that bothered me in Context is King, is how, like, the continuation of the thread of Burnham was the one who started the war. It was just like, did anyone put in a report?
No.
Like, who filed the reports? No, she clearly did nothing.
Well, think about, that sort of thing happens in the real world all the time.
Yeah, true.
And, you could say that the title is a bit meta in that case because we, the viewer, know the context.
Yep. So Context is for Kings. We finally meet the title character. Which does lend to the idea that was supposed to be the pilot.
Yeah, and we meet 3 of the main cast who were in the credits of the first 2 episodes and weren't actually in the episodes. Yeah, which again...
Yeah. I felt like this should have been the pilot. Now that you guys mentioned the flashbacks, it's like, I'm fully in the camp. It took all of 5 minutes to convince me that this should have been the pilot.
I mean, also, just Jason Isaacs steals the show.
Oh my gosh!
So, if you had started the show out with us meeting Jason Isaacs, I think a lot of people would have been more on board from the get-go.
Oh my gosh, yes. No, I love him as a human, as an actor, because I got to meet him this past spring.
Oh, he's so
and
nice.
He is the sweetest little cinnamon roll of a man. He's just a little muffin man. I love him. He is so sugary and happy and just delightful, and he's so gentle. Like, going back and watching this after meeting him, he's always just like, "Oh, hello, love. How are you doing?" I'm just like,
yeah,
it's called acting.
Lord, like, how do you switch that on screen?
Especially
and then
as someone,
like, oh crap, you're an American
whose entire career has been built on playing the worst assholes ever.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say.
Almost every role he ever plays is a terrible villain, and yet no, he is the nicest guy. Like, if you ever get a chance to meet him at a convention, he will talk your ear off. He loves just talking and his panels are hilarious. There was one STOV one year, he and Anson Mount were on stage together, and they were like bouncing off each other talking. It was great.
5 hours later.
I don't think I could handle that. Well, and you mentioned him playing the villains at the con I went to. He did a panel, and someone asked him, like, "Why do you play the bad guys? You're such a sweet man." And he goes, "Well, that's because I have to act. I have to act that way." And it's just like, dude, if that's full, like, you don't have a bad bone in your body, you have to act that. It's like David Tennant. Like, you are an incredible actor if you can go from that kind of range in your life.
Well, yeah, but I mean, David Tennant in Daredevil, like, oh boy.
Oh, you mean Jessica Jones?
Yes, what I meant, yes.
Yeah. Oh, the Kilgrave. I watched that. I'm just like, David, stop.
Yeah.
No, you're not
David Tennant is literally, I was going to bring him up before you did. So there you go. That's what shows you. Have you ever seen, he did a movie where he was a, like, manipulative he wasn't a serial killer, but he was a murderer. I can't think of what the...
Bad Samaritans?
Oh, that's a good movie.
Yep.
Scary David
I haven't
Tennant.
seen that.
Yep.
Oh, so good.
My friend, because I love David. I started watching DuckTales, and then I got into Doctor Who, and I have Good Omens. And so I was just like, he's
Good
an
Omens is another
amazing,
one I
great
gotta
kid. And then he's like, watch Bad Samaritans, Katie. And I was like, I don't
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah. Like, okay, he's got people tied
He's
up
got
in
range.
a basement room.
He's so
Okay.
good. Exactly. No, if you got Jason Isaacs and David Tennant on screen at the same time as lead characters in whatever the heck the story is, I don't care. I want them. Like Good Omens season 3, bring in Jason
amazing.
Isaacs.
Oh, that'd be great.
Oh, a lot of the fandom would just die of happiness.
I can't
They
remember
also
if
need
they
to
were-
bring him in Strange New World season 3 as Prime Lorca, but that's
Yes, they do. They do. We need to see
Yes!
Prime Lorca
Oh
before
my
the end
gosh,
of this,
yes!
because we need to see the person that Cornwell was trying to find.
I didn't even think of that as a possibility. Oh, now I'm gonna be anticipating that.
I'm sorry if it doesn't happen.
We're all going to be sorry if that doesn't
I will
happen.
be distraught.
Were Lucius Malfoy and Tennant's character, were they ever in the same scene?
Doctor?
No, in Harry Potter.
Barty Crouch Jr.
Barty Crouch, yeah.
n-
I don't think they were ever in the same scene
No.
together. Maybe-
Not when he was Tennant. I think Barty Crouch as Moody, I think, does have a scene with.
Yes, he does.
He does in the book, certainly. I can't remember if he
Yes,
does in the movie.
but,
well, as
but
meta,
that's not.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not Tennant. So yeah.
We never,
I mean, we never got
those
to see
two together.
Tennant and Isaacs together in Harry Potter, no. But also,
Well, let me fix
I
it.
have trouble remembering what happens in the book and what happens in the movie.
Yes, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Yeah.
I'm attached to the first 3 because they're light and happy, and I can't take any more awfulness in the world. So
Okay. Well, we'll. This might not be the season to talk about if we can't take any more awfulness, but we'll go here.
gosh.
So, right. How'd you feel about Tilly at the beginning?
I love Tilly straight from the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That
just
reaction
like, oh, you
sounds
sweet
like you
summer
did
child.
not.
I was made uncomfortable by Tilly, just like we were supposed to be made uncomfortable by Tilly. I
Sure,
think.
yeah.
And one of the reasons
Yeah.
I was made uncomfortable by her the longer we watched was that I recognized elements of myself in her.
Yep.
One of which is I can't shut
Yes.
up.
Yep.
Yep.
And I'm saying yup as in
gosh,
I
it's good to know
also
we're all
can't,
the
not
same.
that you
Yes.
can't.
No.
I literally get paid to not shut up. Like, this is
Perfect.
we do this.
So she starts out uncomfortable and cringy, and you're just like, oh my God, I don't want to have to deal with this person. But then you start to go, no, wait, I am this person. And then you start to wonder if anybody wants to deal with you, which is a whole other thing. But
Well, yeah.
It starts an existential crisis, and no TV show should do an existential
Well,
crisis.
as an autistic person, I enjoy when we get autistic coded representation that is not making fun of the autistic coded person. And so that's why
100%.
I really enjoy Tilly's portrayal.
Well, it's nice when it's naturally embedded within the story and not used as a way to draw in a community. Like, hey, we're gonna have someone who's
Right.
autistic, or they present as this. It's like, no, it's a part of life. We aren't gonna like make it a huge calling point. You can come in and enjoy it naturally, like you would in life. And that's how I feel with like anxiety or other kinds of things that I can relate to. Is like, yeah, it's natural, just like it actually is. So that's one part.
oh,
I like.
definitely. Now, this might be splitting hairs here, but you said autistic coded. Do you think Tilly's autistic coded, or you think she's autistic?
She has never been said to be autistic,
Okay.
which is why I said coded.
Okay. No, that's reasonable. It's tough on the second watch on this, once you know who Lorca is, to not see it, of course.
Oh, there's
I
so many little hints.
Yes.
So
yes.
many.
I started making a list. My handwritten list is a lot longer than the typed list that you have in front of you, because I just didn't want to include it. But the one that stood out the most to me was when Saru tells Michael that Lorca does not fear things that normal people do. And that was just like, oh yeah. So going back, as I said earlier, I tried to come at this forgetting what I knew, but that was one I could not let go, because it's so obvious once you know.
I felt so bad for it because I was looking at the online forums and like just doing some Lorca research, fan fiction. But I so I didn't mean to make you spit out your drink.
That's okay.
I needed more Lorca, and there was so many chats. They're just like, "Oh, we can't watch me. He's not redeemable." And I'm sitting over here, I'm like, I still love him. Is it awful? Like he's a terrible person, but gosh, he's a good captain-ish in
time, place, and circumstance.
In this Discovery.
Yeah. So as you both surely remember, we got spoiled that Discovery was going to the Mirror Universe because Jonathan Frakes can't keep his mouth shut.
Yes.
And
really?
You didn't know that?
I didn't know.
Yeah. That's why he wears the shirt that says "I signed an NDA."
Yeah, he's like, he has a shirt that says, "Don't ask me, I signed an NDA," because he got in trouble for this. Yeah, it was at the Creation had a convention in San Francisco. It was literally a week before the show premiered. And he just said offhand, Discovery goes to the Mirror Universe because he directed the first episode when they do. And it went around the internet, and so we all were spoiled on that. And because of that, the theory, the theory that Lorca was really Mirror Lorca was like out on the internet almost immediately.
Oh, shucks.
Yeah. I didn't want it to be true the whole time. Nor did I. I'm like, I want him to be a flawed captain. Yeah. And honestly, even with the hints, which were there, he sells it so much that I was doubting whether it was true right up until the moment when he,
steps out the agonizer.
Her name was
he's so that was so brutal. But he's so tortured in like you can see it on his face and the way that he acts and like how he's into war and everything, but at the same time he's gentle with the crew and he understands like they don't respond to the way that I would coach them, so I'm gonna change it. It's like, that's a good leader. Even in like wars, even if they're on the opposite side, you can recognize if someone's a good leader because of how it all plays out. It's like, you might be on the wrong team, but boy, if you were on the right one, you'd have some good skills, dude.
Did you read Drastic Measures? I think it's Drastic Measures that Lorca's in.
The Kodos prequel?
Yeah. If you want some more Lorca, and you're into reading it as opposed to watching it anyway, so pick that up. It's the only time we see Prime Lorca, and it's fantastic.
It was the second Discovery novel, Dayton Ward, Drastic Measures. It's a prequel that takes place during the Kodos the Executioner.
That's right. Yes, because they're on the planet for that.
And it's about Lorca and Georgiou. And it's.
See, I read through like 18 fan fiction, so I need more. So keep those names.
Also, there's a scene at the very end that imply that basically tells us Lorca is actually in a prison in the Mirror Universe somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh crap!
It's really good.
It's a novel, so it's not officially canon until we see it on screen. But
it leaves it open.
I mean, it gives them the groundwork. Yeah.
It's Dayton Ward said that he wanted it to be a post-credit scene to the point that he had to convince the publisher to actually make it the last page of the book after the copyright stuff, after any ads or anything else that was in there. If you read the ebook version, you have to go past everything.
If you listen to the audio book, it's after the credits of the audio book. I was lucky in that I happened to be doing some sort of like housework at the time, so I wasn't able to immediately stop it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even heard it. But like, I had it on headphones and I was like doing something with my hands, so at the time I couldn't I need to queue up whatever I'm going to listen to next, and I didn't. So I listened to all the credits, and I happened to hear. I was like, oh man, that's great.
Nice.
Yeah. So hopefully we see him again. That would be good. How'd you feel about the goriness of the Glen?
That was awful. That
certainly
was
a thing.
brutal.
Mm-hmm.
So Discovery was really leaning into the fact that we're on streaming and we're rated TVMA.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, they use that to the full extent, don't they?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah. In ways that were not that could have been leaned into better in ways that were less violent and more sexy, but it's fine.
I would argue that it didn't
Like
actually lean into it in any sexy ways.
No, as
there
I
was
said,
a
it
scene-
could have been. Could have
It
been.
could have.
Oh, yeah.
There is a scene that could have been sexy.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I had forgotten how graphic, for lack of a better term, because I don't usually like to use that.
Bones sticking out of their bodies.
When Stamets looks at his friend,
Oh yeah, and it's like the melted
Oh,
face.
gosh.
Oh,
He's just
his
like,
reaction is so not what mine would be. I mean, how that should have put him out of commission. Maybe not in that moment because he's got somewhere he has to do these things. But like, I would have liked a little scene where he was like, laying on the couch saying, "Oh my God, I can't, I can't unsee what I've seen," and yeah, and we got our first Alice in Wonderland reference.
yes, which is reference to the animated series.
Yes, which was a nice touch. We've said over and over again that the modern Trek's show writers have an appreciation for the past, and this was maybe not the first time we saw it, but it was definitely a good touch. So
Yeah.
Which leads us to "The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry,"
Which is
Awful title for an episode.
it is not the
Descriptive.
longest episode title because that is still "For the World Is Hollow and I Have Touched the Sky."
Oh gosh. I'm just like, that's such a long title. All the other ones you have like "Choose Your Pain" and "Into the Forest I Go." Like, and then they're just like, "The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry."
magic to make the sanest man go mad.
What?
There's that. I like that
exactly.
one.
Yeah, that
Gods,
was
you know what? I just realized we were going to discuss Context is for Kings, and we totally jumped over the spore drive thing and how we're creating a new way to fly and all.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that gets introduced in that episode too.
I think
people
most
on the
people
internet were
jump
mad
over it.
about that.
Oh, the amount
Yeah.
of people who were like, "Why didn't Voyager have this?" And it's like,
It's like, watch the whole season. We'll probably find out.
give it time.
Yeah.
There's a reason this is not readily available.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we find out what's happened to the Klingons since then. Apparently things were so bad that they had to eat Giorgio.
Yeah, that was
Disturbing.
Yeah.
That's
But
horrifying.
I think it works contextually with Klingons. I think it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Even without the context of them not having any food.
And Laurel has a very good point when folks says that they can't salvage parts from the Shenzhou because that's the ship that killed Takuma, and she's like, you had no similar compunctions when we ate her captain. It's like, that's a very valid point.
Yes.
Because she's
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I guess that leans into the horror and the we might have seen that on 90s
Can
Trek.
Klingons
The mention,
catch-
not the seeing
get-
it, but
Can Klingons get human prion diseases?
mad human disease.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good question. Good question. Yeah, and so Cole steals Voke's crew, who I think he was barely hanging on to by a thread anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we get that understanding. I can't remember if it's in this or earlier that we get the understanding that Takuma's family had the cloak and nobody else did. So we have that because that's part of the not negotiations that happen.
Now, the cloak is interesting from a canonical point as well, because prior to Discovery, we had been given to understand that Klingons didn't get cloaking technology until they allied with the Romulans.
Yes. This isn't necessarily mutually exclusive there.
True. It could be a better cloak. Yeah. Because they figured out how to detect this cloak.
Right.
And then the Romulans had a non-detectable cloak in Balance of Terror, and they gave that technology to the Klingons. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's just the Duras family rearing its ugly head constantly throughout Klingon history. And dealing with the Romulans. But it's consistent, too, with some of the... I know the novels aren't canon and blah, 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 but it is consistent with some of those, because we have that wonderful story about the Klingon commander in Star Trek III, whose name has just fallen out of my head. Krug, thank you. We have the wonderful story about Krug's family, and they had the cloak, and that was a...
Oh, yeah,
they were building all of
the Prey trilogy.
Yes. Oh, so good.
I love anything John Jackson Miller writes.
Well, yeah. So we have this situation where Discovery has to get to a place, Corvan 2, to go save it from the Klingons, and they have weirdly just enough time to figure out how to get there, and the Klingons are still killing people, and there's these audio recordings. Yeah.
Episode.
That was the thing.
We have 5 hours to get there.
They should have been dead in the first 5 minutes. Yeah.
I mean, not that I want the miners dead, but...
That bugged me.
So...
No, it's like, how all their messages are like, we're down.
Yeah, that was yeah. What I also we talked about Vogue quickly, but we should mention the Javid Iqbal thing.
The what?
Javid Iqbal, the credited actor playing
Vogue.
Oh,
sorry. Okay, yes.
Oh.
I'd forgotten how weird the name was.
I had completely forgotten it until when I was watching the episodes, and I the credits at the end is like Vogue, Javid Iqbal. I'm like, oh yeah, that was a thing. Because they were trying to hide the fact that Shazad Latif was playing Vogue, which didn't work. The internet sussed that out immediately. Yeah. But there was no actual reason Shazad Latif had to play Vogue. They could have actually had a different actor playing Vogue, especially even canonically, because they explain he goes through extensive surgery. If they wanted to hide it, the easy way to do it would have been to literally hire a different actor.
And Ash Tyler should have been, if putting aside all of the rest of it, Ash Tyler should have been shorter, because they literally say in the episode that they took off part of his femurs. So it's like he should have been shorter, if nothing else.
I think he's actually taller than Vogue. Well, he can't. He looks it. I know he's not, because they're playing with the same actor, but he looks. I guess because he's, lanky. But
it's the hair. It's so poofy. Yeah. I had forgotten about that. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So then we have this thing where L'Rell picks up Vogue, who's been exiled to the Shenzo, and takes him to her house Mokai, and they rip him to pieces. Yeah.
Brutal.
Yep.
And then the tardigrade fixes everything. Yay. After it kills Landry.
It's a cute tardigrade. Yeah. Honestly, I'm happy about that. I did not like the security.
We weren't supposed to.
I don't think the character was a nice character, but I liked the character. I liked Rekha Sharma's portrayal of
Oh,
her.
absolutely, yeah. She did a great job.
Yeah.
That. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm like, you're mean, and I don't like that. You don't like that tardigrade.
Yeah.
And again,
that's how I go, I guess.
Missed opportunity for merchandising there. We did not get a tardigrade licensed plushie. If you want it, anybody
you
out
can
there...
in fact buy unlicensed tardigrade plushies because it's a real animal that exists.
Yes, yes. I was going to say, if you want a tardigrade plushie, you can actually get one through the same company that makes the plush disease molecules.
Oh yes.
Eagle Moss did do a scale model tardigrade.
Oh, okay, that's cool. I didn't remember that.
Yeah, it was released as a special. It's just released as if it's one of the ships.
Oh, so it's that kind of scale. Oh, nice.
Yeah,
nice. It's that big.
Oh.
Cool. All right, now we get to choose your pain.
I love this episode.
Me too.
Such a fun one.
And it's another episode that makes me mad that Lorca's from the Mirror Universe because,
Yes.
establishing this backstory that he had his eyes hurt because he chooses his pain and because he feels guilty about his ship. It's that's great. Too bad it's all a lie.
Yep. Well, and I love the introduction of Harry Mudd. And with it being Rainn Wilson, because back when I was in college, I'd go to Chicago and I'd work on film sets and TV sets. And I was actually on a news show where Rainn Wilson was a scientist. And I got to be in a scene with him. And he is such a nice guy.
I have heard that.
And so it's it was so cool to see him pop up in Star Trek.
Yeah, I remember he was in the trailer for the season. You got to see him do the "I'm not mad, I'm Mudd" scene, and I was excited when I saw that, and he's great. Yeah.
Well, also his name's Rainn, so I'm like,
Yeah.
meteorology.
You're like, oh, he missed his calling. He should have been a meteorologist, but thankfully he wasn't.
Exactly.
Because then we wouldn't have this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember people being very unhappy at the idea of seeing Harry Mudd again. And then there was a lot of discussion of how terrible a person Harry Mudd is and why are we bringing that person back, you know? And of course, because that's who he is and that's why he's an interesting character. But
yeah, and I think they established, they very much established that he's is a terrible person. That's what I love about this. In TOS, he is a terrible person from our standards, but he was not portrayed as such in the 60s.
No.
And I like that when they bring him in on Discovery, they establish right away that he is not a good person.
Yeah. I mean, in the 60s, he was the henpecked husband.
Yeah.
which is oh, gods, yeah.
Our court!
They did a nice job with bringing her and her father into, oh my god.
And making her just incredibly friendly and just sweet and nice was an amazing twist.
Yes, yes.
I love, he's like, she's like, where have you been? He's like, I couldn't possibly. She's like, try. I loved that.
Yeah.
Which makes me think that if she was anything akin to what we saw, because remember, that was his representation.
Yeah.
He caused her to become that way.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and this is going to be goofy, but when that came in, I remember talking with some people about if they were going to bring in Cyrano Jones. And of course, Lorca has a Tribble on his desk, which who for some reason
was never there when he talked to Ash Tyler.
I didn't catch that.
Oh, no way!
Ooh, yeah.
Because it would have,
Yeah. I have a lot. Speaking of that, just randomly, I have a lot more sympathy for Arn Darvin. I have a lot more sympathy for Arn Darvin now because apparently he went through a lot.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah. So he has the Tribble on his desk, which never eats the cookies. He keeps one on one side of the desk and one on the other side of the desk, and apparently the Tribble's not interested in
wonder
cookies.
about those cookies because anyone, fortune cookies, they are crispy, but they wouldn't be crispy if you leave them in a bowl like that.
No.
Yeah, no, they would be moist. In about 2 hours, they're just
even in a not humid
environment. Is he replicating more cookies every couple hours? How is this working?
He has the computer automatically replicate
he did say that it was the family business, so you'd think they'd be handmade.
Yeah.
But maybe the bowl is a replicator.
I wonder... The cookies with the family business, was that something from his actual past, or was that something that he affected because it was something from
good
Prime
question.
Lorca's past?
I really like to think that it was
too.
Prime Lorca, and he was trying to assume the character, and he was like, "Oh, that fits very well with my journey in life, being a fortune cookie."
Yeah,
because he talks about destiny.
I think he just picked up that.
So yeah, that makes sense.
I always assume that was Prime Lorca, because also there's that element of fortune cookies are very much an American thing and have nothing to do with China, so it makes sense that a family of Americans, which I guess he's supposed to be American or whatever.
I do love fortune cookies, though.
Oh, me too. What's not to love?
They're good. You can buy them at the grocery store. I did not realize that. I thought I had to go to like Panda Express, but no.
That's dangerous knowledge, though, honestly.
It is.
It is. Well, and the thing with Lorca, like, he's fun and stuff. He's nice, blah, blah, blah. The sass. I don't think his sass gets talked about enough. Like, oh my gosh, I literally wrote it down, the sass, in all caps in my notes. And then my favorite line was, well, we've all got something, honey. When he's like literally being tortured. And it's just like, the delivery of that line. Oh my gosh, I had to pause because I was laughing.
Magic to make this man go mad which there's also a clue that he's from the mirror universe when he's like, oh, I thought the Gormaganders were all killed or all extinct. And it's like, in the mirror universe, they probably had killed them off.
Yeah.
But when Burnham was like, as science officer, I want to science specialist, I want to take point on this. He's like, I don't care. And Ash Tyler's like, I'll go with her for security. I still don't care.
Don't care. Yeah, exactly.
Has nothing to do with anything that he has any interest in whatsoever. Yep.
And then there's
I aspire to have that much sass.
And Despite Yourself, when he's like the last time he's still pretended to be Prime Lorca on the Bridge of Discovery, basically. When because Tyler's going through his actually I think this might have been just after he had killed Culber.
Yeah.
And Tyler shows up on the bridge and Lorca's like, nice to join us, Mr. Culber. I know it's only a yellow alert.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yep.
Yeah. So I was hoping we would get Cyrano Jones, since Cyrano Jones only existed because they couldn't get the guy that played Harry Mudd to be the guy who was selling the tribbles.
Did you know? I'm sorry, but slightly on topic.
Please.
They were gonna have Harry Mudd show up in Star Trek 4 to testify as a character witness for Kirk, but the actor was too ill and they couldn't do it.
Oh, that's too bad.
Oh,
that would have been beautiful.
Because that would have been hilarious.
Oh. Did that end up in the novelization? It's been so long since I read the novelization.
It might have. I'm not sure. There's definitely some scenes in the novel that got cut, like like when Sulu meets his grandfather and stuff like that.
Yes.
Or his great grandfather, I think. But yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so I was really hoping, when I thought about who would be best to play Cyrano Jones, the person who popped into my head and stayed there was H. John Benjamin.
I could see that, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, perfect. And then we got the short trek with Benjamin, and he wasn't Cyrano Jones, and that was a really interesting episode. So I'll just leave it at that. So that was a little disappointing, but yeah. So there you go. Has nothing to do with anything really, but I always like to say Benjamin should have been Cyrano Jones. Yeah. So back to Choose Your Pain. We've got Harry Mudd, Ash Tyler, and Lorca in a cell.
I don't know. I could. I'm sorry. Just,
go ahead.
1 sec. I could see Nick Offerman as Cyrano Jones.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
That could work.
Ooh,
now I
want
Nick Offerman in Strange New Worlds. Yes.
Yes. We know that there's some people that are involved in the production of Star Trek that listen to this. We've been told. So. Yeah,
I don't know if anyone from Strange New Worlds does, but yeah.
Well, I'm sure they all talk to each other.
If they ever need anything better, let me know.
Need somebody to play a Starfleet historian.
We only know for sure that Prodigy people listen, and even then, I don't know if they listen to non-Prodigy episodes.
Probably not. Yeah.
Aw.
That's all right.
Meanwhile, they're listening to this right now. They're like,
it's still cool. I'm still gonna take it, even if they only listen to one episode. That's the time, you know.
Yeah.
So we get that, and then we get, and there's that whole storyline of how Ash Tyler comes to the Discovery, the Choose Your Pain thing, the robot that steals the cracker. Yeah.
Funny enough, I wrote down in my not to interrupt, but I wrote down in my notes as soon as he showed up on screen, I was like, I don't like Tyler. And then for every note, for every episode after, I wrote down, I don't trust Ash. I don't like Ash. I don't, like, it's in every note.
You did remember what happens to him. Like, you weren't just, like, saying this as, like, going in, like, had you...
I didn't remember at all that he was like part Klingon or anything.
Awesome.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
No,
That's amazing.
I totally forgot. Like,
Okay.
so it's just like, I don't like him. Something's not right.
Okay. That's
Well,
amazing.
see, there you go. You had it.
Yeah.
It was like the guy in New York, he said that there were people tunneling under his apartment, and then it turns out a year later people were tunneling under his apartment. He's like, I'm not crazy. That's how I felt when I watched this episode. I was just like, I'm not crazy. He actually wasn't.
Yes.
Because I thought I was like, oh, I'm just being mean.
No,
No.
you were right. Right. Okay, so we get this issue of using the tardigrade as the navigator and how we can't do that because it's hurting it. And we have, which was the first F-bomb ever dropped in Star Trek history.
Yes.
Tilly
and it was
and-
so fucking cool.
It was, and everybody, like, the internet erupted in people who were mad about it because apparently that word did not exist in the 24th century or the 23rd century because, it's rude or something. And then the same people were mad when Picard said it.
Yeah, like words only have meaning if you give it to them. Yeah. Sort of a thing in my mind. So it's like, honestly, by that point, people probably used it so much, like even in modern time, like we're so desensitized to swearing right now. It's like by then it's probably just something colorful that's seen as not quite as
You see
professional.
it in all the literature of the period.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. So it's like, I mean, if you think about it, it's fine.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, like, that's a normal part of my vocabulary.
My internal vocabulary, can't say it externally, but the FCC will show up.
Well, I don't say it much on podcasts.
No,
because,
we try to keep
we
it,
have to put the explicit tag if we do. But
Well, at least this time it's because it was in the episode.
yeah.
There you go, yeah.
Yeah, I remember I went to a small local convention called Farpoint that happened during season 1. And there was a whole panel about whether or not cursing in Star Trek was appropriate. Because that episode had just aired recently.
Oh, that's fucking stupid.
It was fucking stupid.
Ugh. Okay, maybe it's just, let me bring it up again. I'll having been raised on George Carlin, it didn't even register for me.
See, I was raised with George Carlin and Thomas, so we had very different experiences with his
same.
career.
Yeah, that was my introduction
Someone
to George Carlin was as the station master on Shining Time Station.
Yeah. And I never.
Funny side note here. Someone did a dub of George Carlin comedy to Thomas, and like as the narrator, you gotta look up
that's
Thomas Cooper's George Carlin.
That's like the people that dub over Peter Capaldi from The Thick of It onto Doctor Who.
Yes, yes, so much.
Yes, love it. Yeah, so then it is cool, and Stamets is positive about that. He doesn't dress her down, and it's very. I like that.
No, it is fucking cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a very scientist response
But also,
too.
because Stamets is not one to care too much about Starfleet protocol because we find out that he was basically drafted into Starfleet. He doesn't want to be in Starfleet.
No.
So yeah.
No. He's the Starfleet equivalent of Hawkeye in MASH. They dragged me into this.
Yes,
I didn't want to be
yes.
here. And then he decides to inject himself with the tardigrade DNA, and they jump all over him about genetic manipulation.
Yes, I like how we get the reference again that human genetic manipulation is illegal. Mm-hmm. Yes, so good.
And I love how the reveal happened because they call down and say, "Is the tardigrade ready?" And he says, "We can jump." And you don't think about it until you see what happened.
Oh, I did.
Well, not the first time.
No, I did the first time.
Oh, okay.
I caught those words and like, oh, he did the thing. Yeah. Because they had already talked about
right.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, I know what happened there.
I don't remember if I caught it. I don't think I did. But, And then last but not least, we have Mirror Stamets in the Mirror.
That was weird.
I did not catch it was Mirror Stamets in the Mirror until I read your notes.
Well, I put that it was Mirror
realize.
Stamets in the Mirror only because he said he's been trying, when we finally do meet Mirror Stamets,
yes.
we've been trying to contact him. So I retrofit that.
I like that.
But maybe not.
It makes sense. It makes complete sense. Like, my brain just accepted it as canon the second I read that.
I like how Mirror Stamets, I mean, we'll talk about that more when we get to that episode, I guess, but I like how Mirror Stamets basically has all the same mannerisms and behavior as Prime Stamets.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the difference between Prime Cisco and Mirror Cisco. It's like, oh, they're different people. Stamets and Stamets is like, you probably have different morals, but you have the same personality. So I know some people in life who would be like that across the multiverse.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Like, genuinely.
Yeah. Right, and then we come to Lethe. Which
Lethe's great.
I love. It's a little bit, we get some very
written by
important
veteran Star Trek author, or episode author Joe Menosky.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's why it's so good. But at the same time,
I believe is still the only person who has written for both Berman and Kurtzman era.
That I don't know.
Wow.
I wouldn't know without looking it up.
Like, I mean, other than so like Terry Matalas worked on, but he wasn't a writer on Voyage on TNG and Enterprise. I think Joe Menosky is the only person who was in it was actually a writer on both.
Cool.
Feel free to tell me I'm wrong, listeners.
Yeah, I have no idea until I hear
That's not a stat that you can easily Google. So, yeah.
All right, somebody's going to sit down with the writer's list from all of the... And,
Yeah.
Joe Menosky, who's been listening to every episode, is going to...
Oh, speaking of writers, that was also in the news. We lost Tracy Torme last week or 2 weeks ago. Yeah, so that's sad.
Yeah, it was last week,
And he was a hell of a lot younger than I thought.
He was only 64, yeah.
Right, which means he was in his 20s when he was working on TNG and...
Yeah, and so that's another thing.
Wonderfulness.
I was thinking about this. I wonder if he was the youngest one in the room at the time, because he was on TNG in season 1.
He had to have been.
So, like, there were people who are younger than he was, who were younger than he was later, like Brandon Braga, Ronald D. Moore, Naren Shankar, etc. But they all joined later. So I'm wondering if he might have been the youngest ones. And he did some bangers. He did The Big Goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah. Which makes me feel like I've done nothing.
I know, right?
Oh, okay. And I don't compare. One should not compare oneself to others, especially in such a drastically different things doing in life. But it still is like, oh wow, he was in his 20s and doing that. It's Caesar with the statue of Alexander thinking he's done nothing with his life. Except I'm not as important as either of those people.
Well, I mean, I feel this way about the fact that a whole bunch of the characters on the shows are played by actors who are younger than me.
Yeah.
Well, see, the thing that I like about Star Trek is that you do have the diversity of age. You have people who are older, younger, middle ages. I wish we had even older people instead of just like the late original series movies. But it does
we have
make
Carol
you feel
Kane
like
on Strange New Worlds.
True, exactly. And it's like at any point in your life you can have a grand adventure. It doesn't matter what age you are. And so that's one of those underlying tones that I always take from Star Trek. And it really does make you feel a lot more comfortable with where you are in the world right now.
That's a better way to look at it. There we go. Okay, that's better.
You just have to look for your next
It's really
adventure.
awkward, though, for me, like, watching DS9 or Voyager, because, like, I watched those when I was a kid, so I think of all of them as, like, old people. And then, like, I'm like, I'm way older than Garrett Wang was on Voyager.
In Emissary, when Ben is teasing Jadzia about how old he's 27, I'm 28, 328 maybe, and I'm like,
like, oh, jeez, no.
Yeah, she was 28.
Well, I'm like, I'm the same age as Jadzia almost. Like, I'm 27. What?
Yes.
I look like I'm a child. That's why. Oh, I totally do. I'm going to be carded until I'm 60.
Take it as a compliment at that point, then.
Yeah, if it's still happening at 60, you'll be happy for it.
Yeah.
This is a random con memory, but it was next to Jason Isaacs. Actually, they had Walter Koenig at this con, and I went over to go and see him. And I was like, "Oh, hi, yeah, no, I've helped out with you on a couple of podcasts with the Seventh Rule." And he looked at me. He's like, well, "How old are you?" And I was like, "How old do you think I am?" And he goes, "Like 16?" I go, "Close, 27." And you should have seen his face. And like, I brought my brother with me. It was the first time you met him, and my brother's just like cackling over the side.
Well, there's a fine line there because you want it to be. Excuse me. There's a fine line there because you want to be complimented, but still legal.
Exactly.
Like, at least think that I'm old enough to buy alcohol.
I love it. Yeah, I'm old enough to have driven here at least.
There you go. So, I love Lethe, but I feel like there's like two big points that need to come out of this. We get the story of why Spock and Sarek had a break. What caused that, and it's completely Sarek's fault.
Yep.
And
we find out that Sarek is an asshole.
I think we knew that,
We already knew Sarek was an asshole, to be fair.
Again, in my handwritten notes, the first episode, as soon as we meet Sarek, I wrote on there, Sarek is an ass. And, and then I didn't put it in the final notes, but it's true.
He's got that typical Vulcan-like sanctimoniousness.
Yeah.
Sanctimoniousness is perfect for that, yeah.
But at the same time, because of what happens here, it creates context for Sarek's willingness to be completely illogical and to put Spock and McCoy through the Faltorpan. Because the efficacy of Vulcan mysticism, like the Admiral puts it in Star Trek 3, Vulcan mysticism, okay, the efficacy of that has been proven to him multiple times to saving at least two people's lives, his and Michael's. So, I get it. I like that context. So
I like seeing that deep in his subconscious, he cannot control all his emotions because he gets legitimately pissed.
When
he sees that Burnham is seeing the memory he doesn't want her to see.
Yeah, which is consistent with what we know of Vulcans. It was never established whether or not Sarek went through the Kolinar. In one of the books, it's established that he didn't, but that's the books. Right. I can't remember which one. It's one of the ones in which we get one of the ways that Amanda dies, and I can't remember which book it is. Oh, but it's after Spock had gone through Kolinar, or in the, that's what it was. It was the 40th anniversary trilogy that went through the events of City on the Edge of Forever. And the Spock book, he had gone through he had completed Kolinar, and realized because his father just completely collapsed when Amanda died, and he felt nothing, and he realized then how wrong it was to have had Kolinar. So, but yeah, it's beautiful context for Sarek. It rounds him out as a person. He's still an ass, but fine. But he's an ass amidst the Vulcans,
an understandable one,
who were being worse.
Yeah.
You're not quite Vulcans. Yeah. And then the other big point is Cornwell, and recognizing that Lorca is not who he had been. And she talks about it, and as Sarek says later when we come back after the Mirror Universe, there's absolutely no reason for you to have thought he was someone from a different universe.
Yes.
So, but we definitely get that understanding.
What's funny with this is her name, Cornwell. So where I grew up, there's a place called Cornwell's Turkeyville, and they raise a bunch of turkeys, and they have like this giant train that you can ride around acres of land and
pure
all
Michigan.
this stuff. And so every time I hear Cornwell, I'm just like, turkeys, Turkeyville. Yeah, it's just Turkeyville and their craft shows. And so it's been...
Well,
it was so distracting not to think that.
She could be a descendant of them.
I like her character. There you go. Oh my gosh, yeah. Lorca has his fortune cookies. She has turkeys. She just keeps a turkey in her ready room. It's so... I like her character and the thought process. But my whole thing with this entire series is everyone is so quick to just have sex. Like, everyone is just so like, yeah,
Right,
okay.
but we are given to understand that they had that kind of relationship. I don't think that was the first time.
True.
No.
True.
I mean, it was her first time
Probably
with
not,
that Lorca,
I'm
but
just like,
she didn't know
yeah.
that.
I'm just sitting here, I'm just like, yeah.
Well,
No, this whole series, I'm like, wow, they really do like the TVMA, and like it works. Like TV shows do that. I'm just sitting here, I'm just like, wow. I mean, we saw Q and Picard in bed, but this is a jump from that.
it makes sense to me in an age where people have hopefully gotten rid of the...
To be fair...
Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
Seeing Q and Picard in bed was after Picard had been in bed with...
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a couple times that he shows up in bed with him, now that I think about it. Because there's another episode where he picks up the covers and he's like, are we sleeping alone? In the future, I feel like people will have gotten over their sexual hang-ups, I hope. And
one can hope, yes.
Yeah.
also, birth control should be widely, easily available. And new sexually transmitted diseases are probably not showing up, or if they are, they're curable. So
I would imagine they probably are with all the different species, but
yeah, and there might not even
just
be,
like, oh, I didn't know that could happen.
you know, you might not even have the issue of being concerned about birth control if you have people that aren't going to produce children. So, you know, that's the sexuality aspect. I get where you're coming from with that, totally. But
well, like with Burnham and Tyler, and then you got those two. I'm just like,
yeah,
this is a very sexy ship, isn't it?
And then of course, don't forget the George's threesome at the Orion strip club.
My gosh, Orion.
And
I remember seeing comments about that on Twitter, and I was just like, I'm not touching my 10-foot pole. I'm just gonna let it.
That
she touched
actually,
that pole though.
Yeah. That actually reinforced the negativity about the mirror universe, about they're bad because they're overly sexualized, which we got on DS9, which should not have been a marker there. But you know, at the same
continuity.
At the same time, we see a stable, loving relationship with two men who have been together for a long time, and you know, so
and I like. Throughout these episodes, it's so natural. Yes. Again, it's not like, oh, hey, we're gay. It's like, they're just living their life. And it's so refreshing that it's a very natural presentation.
And you don't realize that they're a couple until we see them together in their quarters. I had forgotten that there's 2 episodes worth of interaction between the two of them where you think that the doctor's just a little bit snarky and Stamets is Stamets.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I can't remember if that was announced beforehand, so we may have gone into it knowing that.
I think it was,
yeah.
Because they were talking about how it was like the first, But no, it felt so good to not... It made it easier for people to watch, I think.
I hope.
Because of what, like, you get people who are on fringe, whatever political sides people are on. And a lot of times... You know, if it's going to be like blatantly one political thing, it's like you're going to drive people away. But if you present it as natural, hey, this just occurred, you're going to get more people to listen and watch. And I think that was a very good way of presenting it.
Your point, going back to what we were talking about with the first 3 episodes, I have to wonder if all of the obnoxious, racist, and sexist, I'll call it right out, who didn't like Discovery because the lead was a black woman, if it had started with Lorca in Context is for Kings, would they have come into it differently? Would they have been willing to watch? You know?
I think it would have trapped them more, or like not trapped them, but like
pulled them in,
brought them in more. Yeah, exactly. It would have been like, hey, come on, let's go.
Look, here's a white guy
at the end.
You know, like you want. Anyway.
We even didn't make him British. We made him American.
Yeah.
How different would Lorca have been if he would have been British? I think they were like, you know what? Well, it'll be too obvious he's evil Lorca if it's Jason Isaacs British, so we're gonna make him American.
I think so.
Yeah, and I think it's probably I think it's interesting they went with the Southern accent, because, and I imagine a Southern accent is probably easier for a Brit to do in general, but Jason Isaacs has done regular American accents in things before, so he can do. So it's I like that they went with a still a distinctive voice for him, and not just generic American.
Agreed.
Yeah. It added an extra little bit of twang that went with the sass, that went with the everything. Go. Like, it was perfectly paired.
All right, and then so Lethe ends with Cornwall is captured. Sarek is rescued.
Ah, yes, Klingon ex machina for Lorca. Yeah. He got saved by that.
That is, if you get the if you'd had the feeling that Lorca was a baddie, when he says, "No, we're not going to go after them," and Saru is confused because he would have gone after them. Then
if Saru was going to take the more
dangerous,
adventurous thing, yeah.
So that brings us to Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad.
Oh, so
awesome
good.
Episode. Such a good episode. We were talking about
really
earlier about youth versus age, for lack of a better way of putting it, with Trek stuff. That party is a millennial party.
Oh, absolutely.
It is loud, it is hip hop, it is people
They're playing beer pong.
Yes. You got drunk people making out in corners, not that didn't happen in other generations, but it's a little more open, and it's and all of the lights, all of the bracelets,
So I will
lost
say,
the word for it, but yes, the rave.
I will say that yes, it's a millennial party, and I know this because I've consumed other media, but I have never been to a party like that.
I have never been to a party like that either.
So this is literally, when I was watching this, I was like, first off, this is a ship of scientists. A lot of these are introverts. So this is like the extrovert.
Yeah.
Everyone else is in the room reading a book. But no, in college, I went to one party. It was a university sanctioned party during welcome week or something. And it was a foam party. So basically it had all the lights and stuff, but there was a bunch of foam everywhere. Like you were swimming in foam.
Okay.
And I walked to the back of the house.
No, I got to ask because I'm picturing this. Are we talking about pieces of foam like in a ball pit, or are we talking about sprayed?
Oh, okay. Sea foam. Yeah,
that's what I thought, but I wasn't.
Yeah, and so you could walk through it easily at least. But yeah, no, I walked to the back of the house. I was like, this isn't my vibe. I opened up a window, walked out the window, and walked back to my dorm because I wasn't going back through that foam again.
Yeah, I can understand that. No,
So it's like when I'm watching this, I'm like, I would have opened an airlock and just been like, all right, bye.
Yes, I am a big old introverted nerd, and I'm looking at that, and I'm like, yeah, this is a thing that people do, because I've definitely seen this in other TV shows and movies, but
yeah.
Oh yeah,
I've never
heard about it.
It's like other people, not for me.
Craziest party I went to was a Halloween party,
Actually,
and it wasn't nearly that interesting.
I wish they would do a Star Trek rave at Star Trek Las Vegas or something. You do a late night rave, you get the Voltaire Bitrexual, the Expendable, you get you could do the entire Subspace Rhapsody but remix it to raves. You could be blasting for
that
hours.
Sort of thing
Let's
on the cruise, actually.
Oh, there you go.
No way. See, I just want to hear rave versions of all those songs now.
Well, I mean, I don't know about the music, but they do raves, Star Trek themed, stuff like that on the cruise. There's a party. There's a party every night on the cruise. There's a different themed party every night.
Ooh. See, what if they were doing Star Trek in
the
universe, and everyone's just jumping up and down?
That is one of the songs they play on the cruise.
Nice.
Yes. Let's go.
That song.
That actually would have been in this episode if they had made that as a background song. That would have been. I would have.
That song. You want to know something amazing about Star Trekking is that it was number 1 on the UK charts 2 weeks in a row.
That's awesome.
When it came out.
That is awesome.
Do you guys remember the Picard song? I think it came out on YouTube
Jean-Luc
15 years
Picard
ago.
Of the USS Enterprise. Yes, I do.
Enterprise.
So party.
So we're talking about a rave.
Yeah. So they have this party. Very drunken party, which I appreciate that. Mostly appreciate watching it instead of being it. And then we have Harry Mudd showing up inside of a space whale. So fun. And then, of course, we have
I love
this...
that gets called back in the short trek.
Yes.
When, like, the guy's reading off his crimes and he's, like, violating a space whale?
Because you can imagine what he thinks that means.
Yes.
And then we have our wonderful time loops, because it's a Star Trek show, so we have to have a time loop episode. And it's wonderful.
They use those to their advantage for the comedic timing, I felt. Like, when you did this rapid succession of Lorca killings, I'm just sitting here laughing because it's like, this is so insane.
And then later you're like, yeah, that's...
Very good editing.
So Stamets is the only one who knows what's going on because, of course, the tardigrade DNA has caused him to be outside of the universe or whatever. And we get the secret. He asks Michael for a secret to prove what he's doing, and she tells him that she's never been in love. Now, at first you go, oh, that's very sad. And then you go, wait a minute, she grew up on Vulcan. I'm surprised she's not in an arranged marriage. So,
Well, the Vulcans are racist, though.
None
one
would
touch
have wanted it.
that's true.
They're like, she's a human, ew.
Yeah, that's true.
No, it makes sense. I remember there was somebody on Twitter was like asking, and like this turned into a whole conversation at the time. Like after this episode, somebody asked, "Do you think Michael Burnham has ever had sex?" And like there were a lot of conversations both ways, and like,
Oh gosh.
and like I'm saying probably not.
Yeah.
My reaction was probably not because she's rather introverted and she grew up on a planet where they only get freaky once every 7 years. So.
Well,
No,
and
they
the thing is,
have to
she's
get
so
freaky once every 7
focused on
years.
her career.
Yeah.
It's not by choice.
They might other times.
No, but she's so
Sorry, go ahead.
she's so she's so driven, just like for her career, for her success and everything. And like there's not a lot of time to focus on peripheral activities. And unless you're biologically forced to every 7 years, it's like I don't think that's something that she would choose as an elective with her spare time.
Elective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's how she would see it too. It would be studying human sexuality.
Man, I don't
right?
remember that being one of the options at school.
It's
that
a great new course.
That was an after-school elective. You had to kind of find it for yourself. Yeah.
The kinesiology credits. Yeah.
Were there varsity and intramural?
I'm sure there were.
Yeah. For those who didn't want to take it for credit, just want to give it a try.
Yeah. And then we also from that get the story of how Stamets and Culber came to be together, which is cool. And then they capture Harry and they give him to Stella, and there we go. Yeah.
Beautiful. It's just so well written. I liked it.
Right, and then we have one of Star Trek's wonderful Latin titles, Si vis pacem parabellum.
Oh, that's how you say it.
Don't like this episode.
I don't either.
I literally my notes for this are nope. Saru running is terrifying.
Yes.
Notes for this episode.
This episode, like, I could feel what they were trying to do, but it just didn't land for me.
No. Because it was too obvious that he was not himself.
Yeah.
It just didn't. It didn't work. Yeah. But yeah, so this is looking for ways around the Klingon cloak. Pavo is completely peaceful. Then they convince the Pavans to let them use this transmitter that they have, even though they weren't sure that they were sentient species, but they built a transmitter.
And, well, they thought it was some sort of, like, natural thing that just happened to release these...
That's right. That's right. I missed that part. Okay.
But yeah, the Pavans, they're like, well, the best way to stop the war is to get both sides here. So they called the Klingons?
Yep, because they don't know. Well, they don't know better. I mean, look at how Starfleet... I didn't mention this when we were talking about it, but Starfleet comes off as really naive in the first two episodes. And it is the same as when Archer's out there like, here's a map of how to get to Earth. Here's what humans are. Come join us for dinner. And no thought that they might, come just destroy us all. So, So I think the Pavans have that.
It's like taking someone from the middle of Kansas and dumping them in, say, New York City. It just that's the kind of equivalent that
Yep.
to what they're doing.
I like that. But it does give us the impetus for running the plots for the next few episodes, so that's needed.
And
there.
I do really like Into the Forest I Go, so
yes.
at least it gave us that.
And we do get
yes.
Laurel's requested effect. So
Yes.
that
Yeah.
not that the Pavo stuff isn't important to the story, but that is really the big part that's important to the story, other than what happens.
What I think should have happened with this, what I think would work better with this would have been make Into the Forest I Go a long episode and give us a cut down version of the Pavo stuff at the beginning of that.
Yeah, and take out the Saru thing and just make it like
Yeah. Like Pavo could have been a 15 to 30 minute episode.
Yeah.
Because
If
it
they
could have
really
just
wanted
been them going there, finding the transmitter, realizing that they could talk to the whatever the hell the sentient gas, whatever those were,
The non-spores.
and then they would have done the same thing. So, so that's we get the interrogation. Well, Laurel pretending to interrogate Cornwell, and then Cole finds
Love
her
the
out.
scream scene.
Yes, I love that. I love that. The meme that was going around, breaking the Bechdel, or not, breaking the Bechdel test, one scream at a time or something like that. It was really good. So, but really, this is all just prologue to Into the Forest I Go. Okay, yeah, it is, because that's when the Ship of the Dead is destroyed. I'm getting ahead of myself. And we really find out that Lorca is a complete has no concern for other people's safety, because he plays on Stamets' scientific curiosity in order to get the information to get back to the mirror universe, which of course we don't know at the time.
Well, and as a scientist, I can relate to the manipulation of someone's passion. And it hit a little close to home with this one. I was just like, that's not nice.
And then Burnham and Tyler go over to set the sensors on the Ship of the Dead. And she just can't help herself, can she? She has to get involved in a fight with
Cole. We should at some point just address how really good Kenneth Mitchell as Cole was.
Yes. Oh gods, I forgot about that part. Yeah, he is so good. And in everything that he's done so far, everything that he's done. Period.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think so far is not
right. It's
going to be. I think we have probably reached the end of his acting career. Yeah, sadly.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I mean, he does a fantastic job. There's no one on this cast that I would say does a bad job with the acting.
Oh no.
That sounds like I'm minimizing. I'm not minimizing what he did. I'm just saying it's good casting.
Yeah, they all felt natural for the characters that they were cast as.
Right. So where Burnham confronts Cole, Tyler has this PTSD, as we are
which makes sense.
Understand at the time, and it makes perfect sense. And we get these flashes,
like
of...
even without the real Tyler story, it still makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we do get these flashes of it appears that he's being raped, maybe. Yeah. And it's intermixed with him being, cut up into pieces and put back together. Yeah. Go ahead. You started to say.
Oh no, I with this, I'm thinking with his memories and his flashbacks, and he's seeing himself with her as a human. Could they have possibly been Vox's memories as a Klingon, and he's just imprinting his human form on that, and then we give a complete different context to that.
Yeah, I think it is in fact not sexual assault, although we are we are supposed to understand it as such until later.
Yeah.
And that's what he thinks of
good.
it as.
I'm glad
the
that
time,
was the train of thought.
because he says that she took a liking to him and he used it to stay alive. But that's how
this
I
is
read
also the first and so far only frontal nudity that we've ever gotten on Star Trek.
Oh yeah.
It was more of a topple nudity, wasn't it? It was like,
and also it is technically not nudity because those are prosthetic breasts. But yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Actually, somebody auctioned them off.
I remember
this year,
that was
or last
this year. Yeah, last year.
They what?
Someone auctioned off Laurel's breasts last year.
Mm-hmm.
Let's Google how much did they sell.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Let's see if the eBay site is still listed. Hold on.
Oh, was it even through an auction house? Or it's just
still
eBay.
It's still up on eBay. They sold for $2,800.
Okay.
There are very detailed photos too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
How would you write it on your taxes? Like, what was this expenditure? I bought Klingon breasts.
Hobbies. I think that's the only. Because it sure as hell isn't going to be deductible.
It's a work expense. I'm a writer. I needed to have a reference.
If the person is a makeup artist, they might be able to argue that.
There you go. Michael Westmore sitting over here with them in his trailer.
Right. So I just wanted to comment that it was an interesting having Tyler have that experience and the PTSD from it, and having the guilt over having survived from using his body. It very much reflects the experience of women in wartime and not in wartime throughout human history. And it's to see that flipped, because men have had to survive in that way too. It's just far less common and
less talked about, because it's more uncomfortable for a lot of people to write and act.
Yeah.
So, and it's less comfortable for men to talk about because it puts them in a not powerful position. Whereas you hear women talking about being put in a not powerful, being put in a submissive position. So,
see, I feel like with Discovery and a lot of what they did with sensitive topics, for lack of a better word, is if Star Trek feels like it's kind of been in a cocoon almost, and they kind of have been wiggling around in the walls to expand that cocoon of what is acceptable to talk about. Because once you talk about something for the first time, the buzz and the clutching of pearls afterwards, exactly, it's done. It's happened before. And so they've kind of expanded that bubble for other shows to play around in.
And they have and they will. All right, then we have that last jump, which is supposed to go to Starbase 46, 47.
It was not 47. I think it was 46.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, it should have been 47.
Should have been yes, it was 46. So
and you can see that Lorca presses a button on his armrest.
Yes. So you know that he's messing with something.
And we had previously in this same episode seen him talking with Stamets about how they had the spore jumps are revealing that there's a way to go to alternate universes. So
yeah, this is when I was like, when I first watched it, I was like, maybe a hint of something, but
if Frakes hadn't opened his damn mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, people would have guessed at this point if Frakes hadn't opened his mouth.
Right.
Yeah.
But not prior.
And it worked out well because I don't know if you guys remember, but when the show first aired, we had this episode, and then we had a couple months off.
Oh snap!
Yeah.
Really?
I was trying to remember. I had to look up where the break was.
Time is an illusion to me.
Yeah, because it was a winter break over we had all of December and some of January off. I think.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a very good cliffhanger.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right, and we have catatonic Stamets, and we are in the Mirror Universe. And the next episode is Despite Yourself, where they're trying to figure out where they are, and Lorca does a really good job of acting like he doesn't know.
I had that down too. Like his pretending to be confused is so good.
Yeah.
I imagine he was every day after work on Discovery, he'd go back to his quarters and he'd just enact in the mirror, how do I react? Huh? Huh? How are my facial reactions? That man was a
Yes.
thespian.
Yes. Right. So Tyler goes to Culber because he's got the PTSD, but he doesn't want to be sidelined, and he thinks that maybe there's something that he's been brainwashed or something. And then, of course, Culber finds out what happened, and Tyler kills Culber.
And then we get to see that same scene over and over again in every recap and flashback.
Yep.
Over and over and over and over again.
I want to know, why aren't there security cameras on ships? Like, why? My high school had the security cameras. Why can't this ship?
You know what?
That's top secret juju going on.
As much as Starfleet seems to ignore patient doctor confidentiality, having cameras in sickbay might be one too far. I don't know.
Have audio. You just they can have a private area. But like, if you're gonna have like these aliens, you're gonna have like, I don't know, if Stamets is in there and he's cat talking, you probably want to have a view on him. I don't know. But I'm just sitting there like, man, this would have saved a lot of trouble.
Well, I mean, Trek is that balance between having computers constantly monitoring you so you can ask them questions and get answers or tell them to turn on the lights versus privacy. So there's no good answer for that one. I don't know.
They could even have it in the hallway. Yeah. That'd be a happy meal.
They probably
do
hallway
outside of sick bay.
They probably do.
But if you think,
it's like then they should have been able to pin down.
If you can tell where people are, well, they don't have the comm badges yet at that point, so. But you still have you can tell people by their life signs and stuff. I don't know. You know, it's probably.
That bugged me watching the episode.
Put it to, they make an assumption and they don't follow up. Because the logical assumption there
because they find him
Stamets.
with Stamets. Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so then knowing that something is wrong with Stamets, they just assume and then they don't look at the video. Mm-hmm. So there you go. I can fix it. Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I accept.
So we find out that Tilly is Captain Killy and a number of other awesome titles.
I love that. I love that so much.
She leans into that afterward, though, and it's just beautiful.
It's terrifying how well she can play the villain.
So,
like,
if you talk to me like that, I'd tear off your tongue and use it to lick my boots.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, and we hear Jason Isaacs' actual voice, so that was fun.
Yes. I just love how he's like, I gotta disguise myself. Oh, I got a bit of a problem.
Well, no, that's not his actual voice. He's not Scottish.
Yeah, I thought he decided to go Scottish. He didn't even do himself.
Oh.
Yeah, that's not his actual
voice.
He's
English, yes.
You know what? That's something that I read on the internet at the time and has been in my head since, and apparently that's wrong.
Oh, it was close enough. It was a UK accent.
Don't tell the people in the UK.
Don't tell either the English or the Scottish.
No, because I'm Scottish. Yeah. I'm Scottish, so it's like
because I feel like I was like, oh, that was a nice nod to Scotty, but then somebody was like, no, that's actually what his voice is. So, but it's the internet, so
not quite. It sounded like an English person doing a Scottish accent.
Either way, it sounded cool. No matter where it came from, but it sounded cool.
Yeah,
I always assumed it was a Scotty
like,
reference. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Maybe, is his actual voice what he sounds like in Harry Potter, then maybe?
Not quite as snobby. But
well, okay, and snobby,
not sinister. Yeah.
Like,
it's much more gentle.
But yes,
right?
his actual voice is definitely English.
Okay. I have not ever seen him like at a convention or heard him in an interview, so I didn't. Yeah.
Oh, look up his panels.
I will
on
after
YouTube.
what you were saying. Right. So then,
if you can find the one from STOV, I think it was 2019, where he and Anson Mount were on stage together.
Oh yeah, that you mentioned. Yeah. Okay.
I would love for them to bring Jason Isaacs back for STLV this year. Just because it's like Discovery's final season and like have fun with it. And also I just want to go and get a picture with him because he's so cute. It's just
yeah, I have a photo with him from STLV in 2018, I think.
Cool.
All right, well we find out who everybody is in the Mirror Universe and the Discovery, and they send the worker bees out to paint new to change the U into an I, so it's the ISS, and then Burnham takes over the Shenzhou. And as I was sitting there watching this, I had forgotten how little of this season is actually in the Mirror Universe. Looking back on it, it feels like it's half of the episodes.
What is 4 episodes? But yeah.
Yeah, but it's not as much as you think. And I also had forgotten that it took, an entire episode and a half before we run into the Emperor, too. Because I was thinking she was in there right from the beginning.
Yes.
I had forgotten.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm.
Really, 2 episodes. She shows up at the end of the Wolf Inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wolf Inside.
Yeah. So if you yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us to the Wolf Inside. Oh, we didn't. Laurel tries to bring Voke out of Tyler, and it doesn't work. The code doesn't work. So,
right.
But he's now sort of in a
and
half
this is the one.
state.
This is the episode that Frakes directed.
Despite Yourself was Frakes.
Yeah, that's what I was going back to, because that happens in Despite Yourself. So before we jump,
so
to
at least Frakes didn't spoil that Ash was Voke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So then the Wolf Inside,
or Giorgio,
or Lorca,
just everyone,
or Lorca. There have been a lot.
The bearded Sarek, He could have just said there's a bearded Sarek.
I love
and
bearded
everybody would have been
Sarek.
like, oh, it's the Mirror Universe. And it was a nice touch.
I don't. Frakes did Despite Yourself, so he didn't get to see bearded Sarek. Bearded Sarek is in Wolf Inside.
No, I know.
But yes,
I'm just saying, if he was going to spoil something,
Gotcha. Yeah. I love that Sarek is bearded. I love that continuing through line because we got that in. They didn't do it in DS9. Mirror Tuvok was not bearded.
No,
but
that's because he was. Yeah.
That's because he was also filming Voyager at the time.
Right. Although they could have put a prosthetic on, like they obviously did with this guy, but yeah.
Yeah.
But like in a Mirror Darkly and Enterprise, we got we got a beard on
Sonak?
I'm Saval.
Saval.
Yeah. I was like forgetting his name for
At
some
least it
reason.
wasn't Paul. Imagine if they did that to her.
I've seen that cartoon, the memes. Yeah.
But then the beard on the beard on Sarek was great.
Yeah.
I loved that.
That was a nice touch.
Also, bearded Sarek must have been so confused after that mind meld.
Oh my god, yes.
He's just like, she's not hiding anything, but I don't know what's going on in there.
Yeah. And how many memories of his son come out of that, too?
Yeah.
And she knows about the break now because it's after Lethe. So he may have gotten the whole story of... Oh, that's just so interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so Mirror Sarek and Mirror Spock presumably have an even more contentious relationship than Prime Sarek and Prime Spock, since Mirror Spock we know is part of Starfleet.
Yeah. Ooh, interesting. Okay. There's a novel in that. Somebody write it. So we have Mirror Vogue leading the rebels. We have that.
We also get an Andorian for the first time and a Tellarite, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
It's cool to see the other species popping in.
Mm-hmm.
With minor makeup changes from the past, but they still look they look good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They did.
That's what I'm like. You could have done that with the
There were,
Klingons.
as I recall, there were some people on Twitter who were mad about the Andorians and the Tellarites, but
the Tellarites.
Oh, they were like the wrong shade of blue or
Yes.
something. I think.
Yeah.
But it's like little minor tweaks like that. I feel like are way easier for people to digest.
Well, that's
because it's like through time, 100 years passes, and you're gonna have
different
species.
shades of
changes.
blue.
Yeah.
Humans come in different shades.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't Andorians?
Exactly. I'm pasty. Other people are tan. Like, there's.
I'm pretty pasty too.
Me too.
Yeah,
Well, it is the middle of
Okay,
winter.
the three of
that
us
lovely
don't
Greek
come in
skin
different
that
shades.
doesn't tan
but
and the Scottish shades.
the three of us are the same shade, but humans do come in other shades.
We're from a region in the United States that doesn't get a lot of sunshine.
And I have ancestors from a region in Europe that doesn't get a lot of sunshine, so yeah.
It tracks.
I have sunny ancestors on one side, and it got overridden by the ones who lived in the not sunny place.
All of my ancestors are not sunny.
Yeah. I get a little bit of Italian coming through, but it's not enough. Right. Okay. So then Tilly tries to restore Stamets in between being Captain Killy and absolutely chewing up the scenery. Tyler meeting himself as Voke makes him realize who he is, and then he tries to kill Burnham, and so then she uses the opportunity.
He tries to kill Voke first.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And then...
he's just in a murderous mood.
You know, he's Klingon. Burnham uses him to get the information they thought they needed back to Discovery, but then it turns out it wasn't as useful as they thought. And then the triumphant return / introduction to Emperor Georgiou. Do not bow before your emperor. Yes.
Very fun. Such a fun one. As far as reveals go, that's a really fun one for me.
It was.
I have to imagine Michelle Yeoh just loves getting to play someone so evil.
Yeah.
I have to...
Well, and after seeing her success in Everything Everywhere All at Once, it's really nice to see other people were going back to explore her career and actually found her in Star Trek. So you get some new people in because of her.
Yeah. I have to bring up, even though this is something I'm relaying secondhand, apparently a lot of the design and entrapments around Georgiou are very reflective of Warhammer's Emperor of Mankind. According to Jay.
Yes, I've heard that as well.
So I'm just putting that out there, and I can't.
One
really
of my
comment on
best
it
friends
beyond.
is a huge Warhammer fan, and
go.
he told me the same thing.
Okay, so we have independent confirmation. Listeners, if you know about Warhammer, talk about it amongst yourselves, because I can't help you other than to say there's some miniatures over there that Jay painted.
Well, they could message Jay on Twitter.
They could. Yeah, so Jason Jarkov. Yeah, so that brings us to Vaulting Ambition. That vaulting ambition that Lorca had, much more so than
this episode
than she even realizes.
is a little tough to swallow.
Oh, that is...
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
No, that's okay. That is a hell of a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, beautifully done. Absolutely beautifully done. But wow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And Michael deals with that a lot better than I could have. This is where we get the big reveal. And the thing about the light sensitivity, which is stupid.
It is.
Yeah.
It is so
Very
stupid.
Yep. Laurel
So
also takes Voke out of Tyler, it seems, or at least gives him a single personality.
Yeah, like he still has all of Voke's memories, but he's now the Tyler mind.
Yeah.
Which is weird that it went that way. Like, I'm glad that, he's no longer in mental crisis, but it's weird because this physical body started out as Voke. So it's weird that it was taking Voke out of Tyler and not taking Tyler out of Voke.
Well, that's because of his love for Michael.
Okay.
I mean, that's what we're led to
this
believe.
one kind of steps a little bit away from science.
Yeah.
And moves more towards script writing for me. Yeah.
It's like the Vulcan mysticism. It's Klingon mysticism and
Exactly.
saws.
Sauce.
Is it? It's not in this one. It's in Choose Your Pain that we get the. I think that's the first canonical reference to the dual nature of Klingon anatomy, Klingon sexual anatomy.
Yes.
Yeah.
He doesn't even have enough organs for you. Yes. And then we get the scene in Will You Take My Hand, where we see a Klingon urinating in an alley with two streams coming out.
Yes. All right. So then that brings us to what's passed.
I will say,
that's
a confirmation. That has been part of fanfic for
Oh yeah, that's why I said on
50
screen.
years.
Oh,
Yeah.
so long.
Yeah, that's why I say on screen. So, well, once they talked about the redundancies with Worf, it was
Okay,
like,
I guess it's only been 30 years because that was on TNG where they
Yeah.
talked about the redundancies. But
It's,
yes, that's been
ethics. Yeah. But
that's
still,
been a fanfic thing for a very long time.
Yeah. So we find out that Lorca really is Mirror Lorca. He goes and collects his people after he gets out of the agonizer. We find out that the network, the mycelial network, is being poisoned by the Charon's power source. Stamets spends some time with Mirror Stamets. and also runs into Culber.
I really enjoy their interaction. He's like, "Are you taking me God?" And it's like, "Yes, she's very angry with you." It's like,
she's real, and
okay,
she's
that's
very
actually
angry.
really funny.
Yes, that was so
Yeah.
good.
That was beautiful, yes. Yes. Right, so Lorca takes over. Lorca basically overthrows Giorgio. I mean, functionally. There's a big hole in the floor of the throne room for the same reason that there's always a big hole in the floor of places with baddies. That doesn't make sense.
It's the moon door.
It's the moon door. It is the moon door, which also doesn't, My thought with that always is like, what happens if that opens when you don't want it to? Or what if you trip? Exactly what happens with the moon door, kind of.
Wrong lever.
Yeah. So we have.
So when Lorca falls through the moon door, his death scream sounds like a TIE fighter.
I hadn't noticed.
Someone pointed that out to me on Twitter when the episode first aired, and I can't not hear it now.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that.
I'm gonna say something ever so slightly controversial here.
Okay.
I don't necessarily know that Michael should have sided with Giorgio. I'm not sure that Giorgio is objectively a better person than Lorca.
Yeah. Well, she's let this whole thing happen.
Yeah.
Like, Lorca at least wants to change something.
Yeah, I mean,
clearly, because
Lorca
he wants
is
to
not
overthrow
great
her, so
either.
it's like,
But I'm actually like, I honestly wonder if he might have been the lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
He at least was a nice guy in most of the season. So.
But you have to remember that he
could have learned some lessons.
She's projecting her Giorgio.
Yeah.
And so she's not thinking logically about any of that. So.
Right.
But I don't disagree.
But I do love this episode because seeing Giorgio and Lorca going after each other,
those
and
fight
just Michelle
scenes.
Yeoh and Jason Isaacs just going all in on this. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. And then Michael refuses to let Giorgio die, which is a mistake, but that's fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Discovery gets home 9 months later, and the Klingons have taken over. We find out 20% of Federation space.
I genuinely thought that this was the end of the season.
It would have been an amazing
like
end of the season.
Even rewatching it, I wish it would have been, because and I wrote it in my notes for the next two episodes. Why
we
do we have to?
Yes, I agree that it would have been an amazing end to the season, especially because the last two episodes are very rushed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they're rushed. They felt like they were kind of scrambled almost, which I think maybe they tried to make it feel that way to reflect the feelings of the Federation and their current setbacks. But it's just I wish it would have ended on such a powerful note, because it kind of fizzled a little
Well,
bit.
we do get, that last powerful note at the end, though. So
there's
that. But I
specifically the ba-ba-ba notes.
specific
The
notes.
literal notes, yeah.
But I don't disagree. And we get the green spore that lands on Tilly that later turns into her not friend from the mycelial network. So
May. Yeah.
And that brings us to the War Without and the War Within. And Sarek does a mind meld on Saru to find out what happened and if he's really who he says he is. And in 100 years, we've gone from the mind meld being something that was taboo and nobody ever did to it's being randomly used to just find information out. That's fine. I never liked that storyline on Enterprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was being used that way on TOS, which is, only, 10 years later, so sure.
Right, but going back to Enterprise is,
Yeah, Enterprise's choices with it were not the best.
The Vulcan AIDS story?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They tried. And I totally see where they were going, and they did make the point they wanted to make, but that didn't work.
There's a bunch of interviews from back then where they pat themselves on the back for how courageous they were for making that story.
Of course.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, but they didn't.
See, the thing is, if people are patting themselves on the back, there's no objectivity to that. If you have the community patting you on the back, that's when you know you did something right.
That would have been courageous if they'd done it in 87 when the Reagan administration was still saying this doesn't exist.
Even the 90s, but not in 2002.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. They really did like to get on apple boxes there and Sydney War.
That one was at least topical to the time.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They were like, what's going on around our world right now?
Yeah.
Let's do this.
All right. So, Mirror Universe information is classified. We figured that was going to happen because they didn't know about it later. We get Mira Georgiou, who is introduced to Cornwell. Michael wants her to have political asylum. The Emperor doesn't want political asylum. I don't know if you can give political asylum to somebody who doesn't want it, but fine.
I don't think you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, we're back and forth on what to do about the war, and really all of this is just leading into figuring out how to deal with
what
the
is
Klingons.
the point of her having political asylum? From what? She has...
Yeah.
Right.
She did nothing here.
She has no enemies in this universe.
Right. If anything, she's going to make some very shortly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like one of my favorite scenes, it was such a short little snippet, was Tyler and Stamets meeting in the hallway.
But that was good.
Because, like, there's so many ways that could go down. Like, he knows it wasn't just Tyler, but he knows, like, it was at the same time. And just being like, I hope you feel this way, and walking away. Like, that was very mature. It was very... He didn't, like, punch him in the crotch and, like, walk away. Like, it was a very Starfleet way to handle that while also being emotional.
He does, not him, Culber does later. Figuratively.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we find out that Starbase 1 got taken by the Klingons, who apparently, one faction of Klingons who then didn't continue on to Earth, but that's fine.
Just graffitied and left.
We have Burnham and Tyler trying to figure out what they're going to be. They're not going to be anything. She has to work through her issues with this. It makes perfect sense to me because, of course, he wasn't who he said he was, who she thought he was, who he thought he was. So.
And I feel like he was being unfair to her. And that, it's so unfair to be like, I had trauma, so your trauma's irrelevant, sort of a thing. Like, you have to come for me. And something about that, I think maybe was latently in my memory because I didn't quite remember that whole story. But I'm just like, this might have been why I didn't like him from the start. But it's like, yeah, everyone's trauma is especially relevant to them. Like, and if you're going to try to blame them, that, I want it to be like, you. Right.
And then we have this plan for, we think is to not destroy Kronos, and then it turns out it is a plan to destroy Kronos in the next episode. And Georgiou is introduced as her prime self. And as we go into Will You Take My Hand, you really see that she is incapable of pretending to be her prime self.
Yeah, I felt like when Starfleet was like, yeah, we're going to have her be this, it's like, you haven't even sat in a room with her for 20 minutes, have you? Like, she's not going to be Georgiou.
One of the first lines she has in the next episode is, you don't call it the Klingon homeworld, they're animals. It's like... Wow. Okay. Yeah, this isn't gonna work.
Yeah. At that point, I would have turned around and been like, "Okay, guys, do we do a psyche now on her?"
I do love Tilly's reaction. That immediate, like,
when she starts to do the salute.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah, that was
she's
great.
So good. So good. Yeah. Right. So then, what? Half of Will You Take My Hand happens in an Orion strip club, so that's always fun.
Oh my gosh! I put too much butt as my first note for this episode. I was just like, there are more cracks than California fault lines. Like, come on.
But that's that's their culture, right? So it's okay.
Still, I was not prepared to watch that on a Thursday night.
No, I don't blame you. If you want to watch, you really want to not be prepared to watch something, watch Fellow Travelers, also on Paramount Plus.
Oh,
it is a fantastic show. It is fantastic. It is also just this side of pornographic at times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of shows that I want to watch with my parents and stuff, but I always like watch it beforehand. Like Our Flag Means Death, great Amazon show.
There's moments.
I'm not sure the humor.
HBO show, I think.
It is. Yeah.
It switched,
No,
didn't it?
no, that's
No.
Or
stayed
no,
on
it was
HBO.
HBO.
No,
Yeah.
And it
it's
got
HBO
canceled.
because they just
Oh, I'm thinking Good Omens.
yeah,
Oh,
Good Omens
yeah.
is Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crossing over, like, because those fandoms are so interlocked.
Yes, they are.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, because our Flight HBO just canceled our Flight Beans Death, so hopefully it will come to
bullcrap,
Amazon
too.
too.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yes.
Right. So Giorgio leaves to go get information in her particular way, leaving Tilly alone with the
Clint Howard.
bomb, which she doesn't know is a bomb yet, cuffed to her arm, and Clint Howard, who
Love
gives
when
her
she
drugs.
opens the suit.
The best part of this is that they discover that the volcanoes are active because Tilly gets high on volcano dust.
Yes.
Well, the fact she grabs it and she's like, oh, she just
And then
the
she
horror in her
calls
face,
Michael, she's like, first of
very
all,
high.
I'm really high right now.
Tilly was such, like, in this season, such a good comedic relief.
And when she discovers she's eating Gormagander, that was good too.
Oh God, that was beautiful.
Just-
Yeah. So then they use the bomb to let Laurel.
Blackmail the Klingons,
Blackmail the
basically.
Klingons. Yeah, like
Yeah.
you said. Yeah.
I thought that was such a fast way to exit this conflict.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't want to have to deal with it in upcoming seasons, sort of a thing. They just wanted to tie it all up in a bow with 20 minutes left in an episode.
Yep. It's way too quick.
Like, that's okay.
It is very quick.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, maybe give it more episodes. Maybe make this season 2.
Yeah.
Maybe do one fewer episode in the Mirror Universe and one more episode after the Mirror Universe. It was...
Or cut out the weird tree one.
Yeah, that too.
With
Yeah, there you
the
go.
forest.
But it was very rushed at the end. I agree.
Well, and I wanted to get your guys' feelings on this, because I literally wrote down, I was like, am I just weird? But the speech at the end from Burnham in that whole room, I don't know, I felt that was weird. Why not Saru? Like, no one else in the Federation gets the whole story as to how Burnham's not a defector anymore, or like a mutineer anymore. And like, they're like, oh yes, good speech.
I mean, she is exonerated.
I'm assuming Saru probably did a speech and we just don't see it. I hope.
Yeah,
at
for all we
least.
know, they all
Okay.
did. So
Yeah. So it's like, if that was the only speech, y'all, like, wait a sec. Okay, good. I'm glad I was, there's the other option.
yeah, and then we're gonna head back to Vulcan to pick up the new captain, who we don't know who it is, and why isn't it just Saru? But that's fine. And then we run into the
Poor
Enterprise.
Saru.
Because the captain of the Discovery is like the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor.
Yes, he is.
Yes.
You're right. You're right.
Oh. I got so inexplicably happy when I heard those notes.
That's not inexplicable at all.
In like their pure form, not in like
That's very
Perfectly
very
reasonable.
explicable.
like it's whole body joy, and then it's just so. You can't really explain it to people who don't watch Star
To
Trek.
this day, watching that episode for the end of that episode for the first time is the only time I have felt literal chills while watching TV.
Wow.
But when they say it's Captain Pike, and you're just like, oh crap, because the only Captain Pikes we get are the chair Pike, the unaired pilot Pike, and then you also have the 2009 Pike. And I think we can all agree, Anson Mount is like the sexiest of those options.
I think he's also the best Pike. I mean,
Yeah.
Jeffrey Hunter invented Pike.
Easily.
but
He's
is the
my
best
Pike.
And I also love Bruce Greenwood in the Kelvin movies.
He's great, but it's a different Pike. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he's fantastic.
I was going to say,
No, but he
ironically,
plays Pike.
I thought, at the time, I was kind of annoyed they weren't able to get Bruce Greenwood to play Pike, but that annoyance did not last very long at all.
No.
No. Well, and I've seen Anson Mount in other things before, but like you see him as Pike and you're like, oh my gosh, he was meant to play Pike. Like, just the same with many other actors in Star Trek.
That is made evident in the episode where they show the previously on Star Trek and they morph from Jeffrey Hunter to him, and it's just like, but that's for next season.
Nah. I just saw it and I was like, this is so good.
I had a philosophical question here, but I'm just going to put it out there, and listeners, I want to hear what you think about it. I can't give it the amount of time that I had intended to, since it's been 2 hours and 37 minutes that we've been recording.
Have fun editing this one.
Wow.
That's all right.
Oh.
Right, so, is it easier to make a kind person cruel than to make a cruel person kind? We see arguments on both sides of this in the Mirror Universe and without. And I don't know.
Easier to make a cruel person kind.
Okay.
I think. Because if you have someone who's born with empathy or has empathy to start with, there's always going to have that latent thread.
So you mean
and
literally
that'll
rather
show
than
up in
playing the
life.
part, right?
Yes, because there's a point at which Michael says that she feels like she's losing herself to that universe. And that's what made me think of that. Like, would it be possible for her to completely become that?
I think it would. I think she
so
could.
too.
And I maybe I'm just jaded, but I think it's way easier for someone to become cruel than for someone to become kind.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like it's all about experiences, for sure.
Yeah. But I feel like humans have the capacity to be absolutely terrible, and they have the capacity to be absolutely wonderful. And I think it's all time, place, and circumstance. So.
Yeah.
But that's a whole 3-hour episode into itself.
But I think it's easier.
Not to cut off you guys'
I think the
thoughts.
transition from being a good person to being a bad person is easier than the other way around.
Okay. I don't know.
I'm a sucker for redemption arcs.
Oh yeah,
so.
no, I'm not saying it's impossible.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah.
I'm just
ease of
saying
it.
because like the way I view it, it is easier just in general to do the wrong thing than the right thing.
Oftentimes, yeah. All right, well, I think that's the entire first season of Discovery. And looking forward to talking about season 2 and seeing season 5.
Now, we'll have to see after I watch the other 3 seasons.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I'm still holding by my opinion that this is my favorite season of Discovery.
Okay. I don't know that I've thought about favorites in that way. It is an excellent season, so...
And Jason Isaacs is just so good.
Well, yeah, he boosts it up.
Brilliant.
Extra points for Jason Isaacs anytime he's around, so...
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, Katie, thank you so much for joining us for this very long discussion today. Where can listeners...
Well, thank you for
where can
having
listeners
me.
find you online? And do you want to plug any current and upcoming work? I hope you're going to put up videos of that sled track you were talking about.
Oh,
Okay, good.
100%. Yeah, you will be able to find that all over
Mm-hmm.
social media. Yeah, my socials are at weather_Katie or just meteorologist Katie Nickolau. Easy enough to find if you can spell Nickolau. It starts with Nick, and then after that it gets to alphabet soup.
I understand that one.
But yeah. Yeah. But yeah, and I'm also YouTube, so many random fandoms there. You can find my fandom forecast there. And also we have a new show called Welcome to Our Cult, where I take friends who aren't used to TV shows or haven't seen certain TV shows that I'm religiously involved in and introduce them to that. We did our first test run of it with Good Omens, and it went really well. So we're going to try to, in the new year, when everything calms down, which it never will, but we will find time to do some more.
Nice.
Cool. All right. Thad, where can people find you when you're not planning to use the power of a bomb to bring together all the people on a planet?
I mean, if it would work, sure.
Gods, especially these days, yeah.
Best place to find me is probably on Twitter. I'm at Tyrannicus, that's Tyranicus. And you can also hear me on the podcast I do with my friend Carl called Licensed Spiel. That's licensed spelled with a C like the British do it, where we talk about movies and shows that we watch. And Chrissy, where can people find you when you're not chowing down on a Gormagander?
Oh, no comment. Yeah, in addition to here on Infinite Diversity, you can find me on History with the Szilagys here on the BQN. That short history podcast I do with my fellow historian husband Jason. And I'm also happy to chat about our shows in the BQN Collective on Facebook and on Blue Sky and on Twitter at the Goddess Livia, that's TheGoddessLivia, where you can see my opinions on Star Trek history and leftist politics. A little more, perhaps, of the last one there lately, but there it is.
Don't forget all our other great shows on BQN.
What else can you listen to on the BQN? Replicate yourself a mug of hot chocolate and join Amy, Mark, Christos, and Kelvin as they discuss everything and anything in the Star Trek universe on All Good Things. Boost yourself with an energy drink and join Davey on YouTube and Twitch for reviews and live streams of classic, cheap, and sometimes more recent video games on Bargain Bin Gamer. Brew yourself a pot of coffee and join Jeremiah to discuss Star Trek Voyager on The Captain's Couch. Mix your favorite cocktail and join Mark and Matt at Cinema Z to discuss the films you probably missed but should definitely check out. Pour a cup of tea, Earl Grey, hot, and listen to Stephen and Keith as they discuss the next generation of Trek on Galaxy Class. Get yourself something caffeinated and learn an interesting bit of history with Chrissie and Jason on History with the Szilagys. Have a bowl of Flo-Meek soup and join Thad and Chrissie and a guest to discuss new episodes of Star Trek as they are released on Infinite Diversity. Have something to sharpen your mind and put your Trek knowledge to the test with the Treksperts quiz. Take a bite out of something that didn't seem edible and join Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley covering all things in New Trek, including that show that is Trek in all but name, The Orville, on Union Federation. Get your Sunday brunch ready for The View Screen, a live weekly talk show hosted by Kelvin and Amy with featured guests talking about all things Trek. Pour a glass of wine and spill some tea with Christos while he discusses current Trek news and events and explores the world of fandom via guest interviews, all with an LGBTQIA+ perspective on What's the Tea, Bev? And Patreon members get to pass around that green bottle of Aldebaran whiskey once a month on the round table, and they can listen to It's Green with Mark White and Amy's Math Moments. Thank you very much for tuning in to Infinite Diversity. Thank you to Zach Tripp for the wonderful theme music and Mark White for the awesome show art. Please subscribe in your favorite podcast player, and don't forget to rate and review us there as well.
If you want to reach out, you can find the network on Twitter at BQN Podcasts, or our show specifically at IDIC Podcast. You can also talk about any and all of the BQN podcasts in our Facebook group, the BQN Collective. When you next hear from us, we'll be reviewing Season 2 of Discovery. Until then, peace and long life.
All right. Well,
I finally stopped getting carded when I started losing my hair. It's like,
oh yeah,
there are very few bald teenagers.
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah. I get carded if I'm wearing, like in the winter. I get carded if I got a hat and a heavy coat on. But in the summer you can kind of see. And Jay never gets carded anymore because he's got the gray in the beard. So.
Right.
Oh well.
Yep.
Also, you end up shopping at the same stores and you get to know people and they know that you're old enough anyway, so.
Yeah.
I literally, because I work on TV, people know that I'm old enough for things.
Right.
And so they recognize me. They're like,
so locally, yeah, you're
like,
fine.
I took a selfie with him. There's a gentleman at a Home Depot store who came running to me yesterday. He was an employee. He came running around the corner. He's probably in his 60s. He's like, "You're the weather lady." I was like, "Hi, yeah." And I'm over here buying like a trowel to make a snow fort. And he's like, "Can I get a picture of you?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. Do you want a selfie?" He's like, "How do I do a selfie?" I'm like, "Oh, that's sweet." It was so sweet. Cool. He was just gonna take a picture of me with some lumber behind me. I was like, "Come on, let's get a better picture." It was so cool. Sweet. Wholesome interactions.
Yeah. Right. So back to Lethe. It's been a while.
Long way around to get back to that side track.
Tangents are definitely part of our fun.
Yeah, we always get really wild on the first one back from a break.
We do, yeah. So,
I'm gonna say 1 sec. I just gotta look outside the window because apparently we have a lake effect band right now, and I want to see if it's puking snow again.
Puking.
Okay, it's been 2 hours anyway.
Is puking snow the technical meteorological term?
Oh, definitely not. But I think it's just so funny and accurate.
We still just have sprinkly, but maybe that's headed in this direction.
We have blue sky and sunny.
Well, I'm only a few hours
I'll
from
take
her,
mine.
so it makes sense. I'm
like,
okay,
also it's it's 41 degrees, so I'll take the blue sky because precipitation right now would have been rain.
Yeah.
Dude, okay, also, if you guys are betting people, side note, Kansas City Chiefs versus the Miami Dolphins, wind chill is going to be around 20 to 30 below zero. The National Weather Service put out alerts for the game. Like, guys, cover everything, because Tua, he said he won't wear gloves. I'm like, you played for Alabama and Miami. Put on your gloves, kid. Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad that it turned out that you said betting, but based on conversation we had earlier, I thought you said if you guys are going to be betting people, and I'm like, whoa.
Well, put on some extra sheets and crank up the heat.
You got to keep warm in the cold.
Not my typical forecast, but I can adjust.
I saw that too, and it reminded me of anytime you have a team from a college that's close to sea level that goes up to Laramie to play my Wyoming Cowboys.
Oh, yeah.
Wipe the floor.
Yes.
And then on the other side of that, they come down to sea level and they're like super oxygenated. So it's they should be a much better team than that. But yeah.
They should.